Hello, everyone. Hopefully, you can hear me right now. And yep, you can. Okay, great. So I'm going to mute the other computer so it doesn't feed over. We had some technical issues. This is my second time using OBS and Twitch and all that, so it was a little tough to get off the ground, but we made it work. Anyway, I'm Eeek Kurtz, and I'm here to lead you all through an exciting adventure on the night black streets of Doskval. We're playing Blades in the Dark, a campaign called Ring Down Below. Telling this tale of labor struggles in the docks. And we've got some great players joining us again tonight. We're going to do some quick introductions, and then we will jump right into this business. Let's start off with Baron. Tell us who you are, where we can find you, and who you're playing in our adventure.
What's up, everybody? I'm Baron. I'm over at RWD Gaming on YouTube. We have a couple live plays, nothing too fancy. Come check us out. I am playing Jonathan Black, or Black for short. He is kind of an information guy. He deals with information rather than, per se, other areas of business. So he aids his party in that end of things.
Very nice. Good to have you, Baron. Next, let's do Jeremy.
Hello, everybody. I am Jeremy. I have a YouTube channel called the Erasmus Expeditions, where I do a lot of live plays and stuff as well. Have a lot of new videos that I've been trying to put out about RPGs and things, just talking about them. I'm also 1/3 of the podcast, The Dudes of Yore, with my buddies Jeff Doty and Chad Nick. So, yeah, go check us out. And tonight, I'm going to be reprising the role of Benjamin Overstreet. He is a Dagger Isles spider. And one hell of a boat racer, I hope.
Yeah, good. Good to see you again, Jeremy. And last but not least, let's do Mr. Derek.
Me. I'm Derek. I'm a very small part of the Mythic Gazetteer that I'm sure Eli will tell you more about. I will be playing Clank, the Akarosi Leech, who fancies himself a master mechanic and will get Benji to the first no matter what. Yeah, looking forward to playing.
Excellent. Yeah, good to have you too, Derek. And yeah, like Derek said, he's part of the Mythic Gazetteer, as am I. We have a game company together where we publish role-playing games originally just for Savage Worlds, but we're branching out into other stuff right now. We're doing a multimedia empire takeover. This very stream is part of that, as a matter of fact. Like I said, we're playing, well, I guess, so you can find me at ZapDynamic on Twitter, or at the Mythic Gazetteer on Facebook, or my name, Eeek Kurtz, on Google+, or at our website, mythicgazetteer.com. And so, with no further ado, we will go ahead and talk a little bit about the game we're playing tonight. Last time, on Ring Down Below, we met our daring crew of scoundrels. They are illegal cigar skiff racers in the canals around the docks. And it was a pretty raucous race we went through. We had a lot of sabotage going on. I know poor Jonathan Black was trying hard to get some other people off of some other boats, and the dude just couldn't cut it. He was almost drowned. It was rough stuff. So hopefully tonight he'll have a little bit of a better showing. And at the end of the session, it came out that you had successfully sabotaged a man by the name of Hutton. And by doing that, you did a favor for a woman by the name of Tasha. Both of them are racers. And Tasha then was willing to work with the dockers to get them Sparkcraft technology, which is this setting's equivalent to steampunk and that sort of thing. So we'll jump into that soon, but one thing I want to point out here on this screen you see in the Twitch window, you'll notice a shiny new graphic that says The Electric Eeek. Between the last session and this one, we settled on a name, at least for our boat, and it's basically the name of our crew as well. Eeek, for those of you who tuned in last time, may remember, is the substance that is in the boat that makes it go super fast, basically the equivalent of NOS. And the Electric Eeek is the name we settled on. I'm really excited about it, actually. Not just because it's a great name, but also because I think this is the first Blades game I've played where people settled on a name for their crew in the first 5 sessions, much less the first one. So Congrats, guys. You're doing good.
We're like a band. We just keep changing it every time.
Formerly known as the Electric Eeek. Okay, so what I want to do before we jump into the game proper is do a little bit of an icebreaker. And I want to know, for each of your characters, what is your character's favorite Doskvali curse word? Let's go ahead and start with Benji. This can be a real world curse word if you want to. It can be a totally made up thing. It's up to you.
Curse word.
What's the rating of this video or stream?
It's about to go up.
Feel free to drop some fuck bombs if you want to. That's fine.
All right, yeah. I think okay.
I think I'm going to say soot. Instead of shit, it's just soot.
Soot. Okay, this is a dirty, grimy city. That makes a lot of sense. You're down in the soot. You got soot for brains. I like it a lot. There's potential there. Anybody want to go next? Jonathan or Clank?
From a quick search of Victorian curse words, I shall use bescumber, which means to throw poo upon.
Bescumber? I love that. Okay, that sounds like a great plan. Bescumber and soot so far.
We're already leaning in a direction here.
Mm-hmm.
Mine is simply going to be fuck because it's unfortunately going to slip out anyway at some point.
Well, bescumber that.
Sounds very good. Cool. So we've added a little bit of flavor to our world. And for any of you who are joining in chat, I want to give you the opportunity to add some flavor to the world for yourselves too. So for this time, the task you are given is to share with us mental images of the Doskvol docks. Tell us, what you see when you picture this place. Tell us the smells, the sights, the sounds that assault your senses. And I will try my best to incorporate them into the game. However, speaking of the game, let's go ahead and jump into this. So, welcome, scoundrels! Once again, KMGX and its affiliated stations are proud to present Gazetteer Radio's program, Ring Down Below, a tale of labor and struggle from the pitch-dark canals of Doskvol. We go now to the riotous electric playground of Night Market, where Jonathan Black and his informant, Valeris, gather in the cramped basement of the Devil's Tooth. So, we were out on the waters of the Void Sea, and we can see Doskvol spread out in front of us like a dark jewel on the horizon. We zoom in, and we go right past the docks. We zoom over them, and we see the entire city choked with fog. It's raining a little bit. People are shivering and kind of huddling to and fro. And we go almost all the way to the other side of the city, to a district that is right next to the big rail line that goes into and out of town. This is Night Market, and it's so named because it is the place to go when you are looking for the most exotic goods. Doesn't matter what you're looking for, Night Market is probably the place you're going to find it, legal or illegal, whatever your fancy. In Night Market, there are tons of electroplasmic lights everywhere. They're all colored. There are all these signs everywhere advertising, booze in here, women, men taking off their clothes in here, fancy dancing, come this way, that sort of thing. Huge competing for people's attention over in this area. But we go past all those lights, and we wend through the streets, and we end up at a place that doesn't have an electric sign. It's called the Devil's Tooth. It looks like video just dropped for everyone but me. That's a strange thing. What's going on there? Video? Hello? Can everyone see me?
Playing. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Whew, man, that was tenuous for a second.
You really took everything off there, Eli.
Suspense was killing me.
So I was watching, and all of a sudden, all three of your videos went blank, and I was like, I didn't do that. Anyway, where did you drop off? At what point did you...
It wasn't us that dropped off.
So what was the last thing you heard?
They take off their...
Women and men maybe take off their clothes here? Okay,
Yeah,
cool. I also
Literally,
said,
women and men take off. And then
Cool.
oh, they take off everything. So, what I was saying is that there are streets everywhere that are covered in all these lights, all these places competing for your attention, but we are going somewhere else. Instead of all of these electric lights, we are blowing right past them, and we are going to a place called the Devil's Tooth. It is a tavern that's right on the river, and this tavern is known to be a place where if you know the right people, you can get highly illicit substances. There's a class of people in Doskval called psychonauts, and they are the explorers of the trips of the mind, you might say. And the Devil's Tooth is one such place that they gather. I am sure Jonathan Black is probably familiar with these sorts of people. And in fact, he's with one of them right now. He is with a contact of his, an associate, a partner, if you will. He's the guy's supplier for Jonathan Black's electroplasmic cigarettes. He goes by the name of Valeris. He is a greasy-haired, kind of well-to-do guy. He's got more money than Jonathan Black, and he can get just about anything you are looking for. For those of you in the Twitch stream, I will show you his face right now. We have Valeris right there next to Tasha and right underneath Chief Helker, Rothdava, and Coil. And for you guys playing, if you're not already looking at the Roll20 environment, I've got all the pictures arrayed there next to the journal, and he's right there along with everyone else. So, Valeris is sitting with you, and normally Valeris is a business-oriented fella, but he's not usually very venomous with you, right? But this time he looks cagey, and he is kind of looking over his shoulder, and when he does, you notice that he's got a bruise on his neck here. And Valeris looks back at you and he says, "All right, well, I suppose there's nothing to say but the situation. I was picked up by the Bluecoats last week. You know anything about that?"
No, I have no idea.
See, when they picked me up, they were asking me all sorts of questions about these canal races. They kept telling me I've got friends who race illegally on little skiffs down in the canals, and you wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you, Jonathan?
Oh, well, I might.
Yeah. You see, Jonathan, we're friends, aren't we? We're good friends.
I would say so.
And you know the proof of it? That whole time, didn't matter what they were doing to me. I kept my mouth shut. Didn't tell them a thing. I told them I had no idea that anybody races skiffs in the canals. But at the same time, I was tucking information away. I knew that you race canals. And I took a beating for that. I don't know what you're doing down there. I don't mingle with the dregs of society like that. But I find myself disappointed, and I wonder how much our friendship is really worth to you, Jonathan.
And Jonathan would kind of like clasp Valeris by the shoulder and kind of like straighten up the lapels of his jacket here and kind of like brush him off. Well, you see, Valeris, what we're doing down there has an opportunity to make quite a bit of money, and I might even like look around me a bit similar to how he did. You know I'm good for money, don't you, Valeris? Kind of like smacking him in the chest. I always come back.
Oh, I know you're good for money. And you know what? What's more, I think if you're so good for money, and if you're in this situation where you can be... There's a siren going on in the background.
Bluecoats.
They're on our trail. Cheese it. It's the fuzz. Anyway, if you're in a position where you're making a lot more coin, perhaps I should raise my prices on your electroplasmic cigarettes. And he pulls out a pack of them. He's just kind of looking at them. He's like, they're hard to get, you know.
I suppose you're trying to be cruel about the situation. I understand you got beat up, man, but we all get beat up by the bluecoats here and there, especially when you're in our run of business. You
Our
can't
run of
blame that
business.
solely on me.
Yes, it is dangerous work we do, isn't it? I suppose I should cut you a little slack. Tell you what, these, same price as usual, but I might appreciate it with a little extra padding next time you pick up an order. Just as a measure of goodwill. Something to consider.
Kind of like looking my illicit drugs over. I think that can be within reason.
Very well. So the conversation is over, and you would know that this is the time when he's done talking, and you can check out. Would you be going right back to the lair of you guys, or what do you think? What would you be doing?
Honestly, I'm probably retarded and am going into one of the nearest places I could probably get high, but to forego that, I'm probably going to go back and kind of relay. Oh yeah, the information about the blue coats has struck me as a little odd, so I'm going back to the lair to really relay
Okay.
the information.
And when you stand up to leave, Valeris, he grabs your sleeve, and he's like, Jonathan, I really do want to be friends, and I hope nothing will come between us in the future. We have a long history together, and I respect that. But times are hard in this city, and, well, I just hope that we can stay on the same side.
I take care of my own. Just remember that.
I know you do, and I appreciate that about you. Very well, carry on. I'll see you later.
Take care of yourself, Valeris. Keep out of the blue coats.
So, you leave to go head back and tell Clank and Benji what's up. But Benji and Clank are not back at the place yet, because Benji and Clank have some business of their own. At the end of the last session, we determined that Tasha is going to supply the dockers with some Sparkcraft technology. However, we did not decide exactly what Sparkcraft that's going to be. And so what we're going to do is play out that negotiation as part of our free play. It's going to be inspired by the crafting rules in the book. For anyone who has the book, you can turn to page 224 to follow along with us. The way crafting works, it revolves around 4 questions, 2 of which I ask the players, and 2 of which the players ask me. So the first question I will ask of all of you players, and I think this is directed specifically toward Benji and Clank, is what type of creation is this, and what does it do? And so, to give you some guidance, a creation might be mundane, alchemical, arcane, or sparkcraft. And for these purposes, we don't need to worry about any skills you guys have. We're just worried about getting the stuff from Tasha. We've already decided it's going to be sparkcraft, but in what way do you want, what kind of sparkcraft technology do you want to secure to help the dockers in their work?
To help them in their work, or to help them fight against the man?
Well, that's a decision you can make. Yeah, you're free to choose either one.
Because small incendiary devices sounds fun.
Small incendiary devices, okay, like a grenade or something?
Less loud, more just fire.
Okay, so more like a firebomb than a grenade, or like
maybe like some Guy Fawkes stuff. Almost like an alchemical version of black powder in kegs or something.
But something really small, like it doesn't take a lot of it to start a big conflagration. And I really just want to use that word just then.
Conflagration, yeah, absolutely. I mean, don't we all? Okay, so another question that you ask me: what's the minimum quality level of this item? And this will determine the magnitude of the thing. which basically determines, like how hard it is to get your hands on. So go ahead and ask me that. What is the minimum quality level of this item?
Hey, Eli, what's the minimum quality item or level of that item?
My goodness, I'm so glad you asked. The minimum quality level of this item is going to be... I'm going to say this is a tier 3 item because the Dockers are tier 3 and Tasha has access to some pretty nice stuff. So it makes sense that it would be tier 3, which means this is considerably nicer gear than you 3 have ever been able to get your hands on. That's nothing to scoff at. And then I ask, what rare, strange, or adverse aspect of this formula or design has kept it in obscurity out of common usage? So we already had Clank decide that this is going to be an incendiary device of some kind. Let's do Benji. So what rare, strange, or adverse aspect of this formula or design has kept it in obscurity out of common usage?
I think it uses some of the Leviathan blood.
Okay.
And the people in charge of that commodity, especially knowing what it's possible of doing or what it's capable of doing, they really don't want that into the hands of the common folk.
Cool. Yeah, it's a controlled substance and it's potent and dangerous, and so they don't want it to get into the wrong hands. I like it. Okay. And then I sent a message through our messaging thread of the last question for you guys so we can avoid the awkwardness of me telling you a question that you're going to ask right back to me.
Hey, what are the drawbacks of this item?
You know what? That is a great question.
If any.
It turns out that a good caveat too, Benji, because it doesn't always have to have a drawback. However, this one does. So this is a fire starter device of some kind. It is going to... You know what? It doesn't actually have a drawback. None whatsoever.
The drawback is it has no drawback.
So what we're going to do now that we've determined all this stuff, we will jump into roleplay and we will talk about this. Now, Tasha has decided to meet with you in a section of the docks, a particular tavern in the docks. Does anybody have a suggestion for the name of this tavern? I will say it's not a seedier tavern. It's a little bit of a nicer place. It's probably on the second floor of a building. You have to go through like a lobby to be able to get there.
Peg Leg Pete's.
Peg Leg Pete's. All right. So you're in Peg Leg Pete's. And it's a very nice peg leg, by the way. Made out of really nice steel. It's got some electroplasm engraving on it, so it glows a little bit. And he's hobbling around, going to the various tables and stuff, and getting orders, and being very deferential as he's doing this, because there are a lot of fairly well-dressed people in this place. Benji, what are you wearing?
How long after the race is this?
Oh, this is like a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the heat's kind of died down a bit. So Benji's probably back to wearing his, usual attire, which is like a dark trench coat, and not the nicest kind of under attire under the coat, but still pretty good. It's better than probably most of the people he's used to working, hanging out with.
Sure.
And then of course his tall boots.
Sure. Would you say it's roughly on par with the dress code in this place, or is it a little nicer, a little worse?
Probably a little nicer than most people here are dressed.
Cool. All right. And Clank, what about you? What are you wearing in this place?
Clank is wearing a greasy coverall with a very greasy bandana over, like, showing his eyes, but over most of his face. He's still trying to lay low because someone saw him do something bad.
So you show up in a bandana. What happens that finally convinces you to take this off? at least to lower it. But because the bouncer's not going to let you in with this bandana over your face. It's too nice for that. So how does he finally convince you to lower it for as long as you're in this place?
He didn't.
He didn't?
like I'm going to see if I can intimidate my way past that.
Well, you can certainly try. What action do you want to use for this?
I guess that's a sway.
A sway? Okay, so sway would be a little... it wouldn't be so much intimidation as it would be kind of like social lubrication or something, convincing. And so you can still say that like you're making some sort of threatening thing. It just can't be like this big, bold gesture. It should be a little more subtle.
Oh, I mean, I don't say anything. I just glare at him with my eyes because that's the only thing he can see.
Okay. All right, so if you're trying to sway him with this, I would say that honestly, command is probably a better action to do. But if you want to sway, that's fine. It would just diminish your effect a little bit, right?
Command's fine. I'll do command.
Command? Okay.
I mean, I have no points in any of those things. So.
Sure. So I think you're a wanted guy. This would be risky. Yeah, I think it's definitely a risky roll, and I think that command will let you have a standard effect from this thing.
Hey, I got a 6.
All right, very nice. So, yeah, you succeed.
Oh, wait. No, I take the lowest result. That sucks.
Oh,
I
bummer.
have a 2.
That's a 2? Okay, well, with risky, if you get a 2, things go badly. You suffer harm, a complication occurs, you end up in a desperate position, or you lose this opportunity to act. And so, I think you will lose this opportunity unless you choose to resist it somehow.
Lose the opportunity to go in there without my mask, or to go in?
You will, well, you can interpret that however you want. You can either choose to take off your mask and go inside after all, or you can choose to not go inside and be a part of this negotiation. Because the bouncer's not having it. The bouncer looks you up and down and he's like, I said take the bandana off.
So what I'm going to do then is I will take it off and put it over my head.
Okay. He's like, yeah, you smart ass. Get in there.
And I wipe my hand on a particularly greasy spot on my coveralls and give him a pat on the back without him noticing and say, okay.
All right. So you head inside, and Tasha is already sitting over in the corner. She's a short woman. She's maybe only like 5'2" or 5'3", and she is the type of person who, even when she's sitting still, looks like she's ready to leap into action at a moment's notice. She's kind of back in the corner of the parlor, and she's looking around at the different people, and she spots you coming in, and she doesn't exactly greet you, but you can tell that she notices you as you're coming over. When you do arrive, she doesn't extend a hand to shake or anything. She just gestures to some seats, and she says, "So, you are the advocate for the dockers. I understand we're doing business this evening."
Yeah, that's what we were told.
All power to the workers.
Right. What he said.
Listen, I know you beat me last week in the race, and I just want you to know the tables will turn sometime.
Hey, look, there's no reason to stop this off on the wrong foot. It was a fair race, as far as I'm concerned.
Yes, as fair as any canal race gets, I suppose.
You made sure that you finished looking pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Tricky track.
So, I have another question for you. How is it that the dockers, in their work loading and unloading crates from the ships that come in and out, how is it that they need crates full of fire oil reactive?
Well, Their motives are their own. It's really best of us to probably not ask too many questions, really.
It gets cold at night.
Perhaps you are right. But I find myself wondering, perhaps fire oil has applications in the Docker's line of work. Perhaps there are vermin that need to be eradicated from the ships. What I don't understand is why they would need industrial-grade activation devices that are small enough to tuck under a pallet or able to be fixed to a wall with an adhesive surface. What cause could they have for these incredibly
You only have
violent
so many
devices?
hands to hold things.
And those rats down at the dock are something else. I'm telling you, they're huge and they're smaller than most people.
The rats.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
She looks around the parlor, and she looks, again, totally at ease, like she's not worried about anything. She's just kind of bored and looking around, but at the same time, like, at any minute, she could be ready to pull out a pistol and blow somebody's face off. And then she's kind of swirling her wine as this is going on, and she takes a sip, and she says, "Mushroom wine, one of my favorite vintages from Severosi, my homeland." Then she places it down and she says, "I am interested in helping the Dockers eradicate these rats. We are here to negotiate the terms." How many crates do you need?
Did they give us any kind of information that they were any kind of specifics like this? How much they were looking for, what we were allowed to trade for it?
Certainly, yeah. So Roth Dava, the kind of point person for the Dockers that you've been interacting with, he knows that the Dockers are hard up for just about anything they can get their hands on. There is technology down at the docks, like there are cranes and stuff that can lift things off of the ships and everything, but it's still really dangerous work, and so he was not going to be picky. He knew that Sparkcraft technology could help them out one way or another, either on their legitimate business face or in their efforts to fight against the man. And he just wanted to get as much as possible. You know, I mean, the Dockers are a tier 3 group of people, so we're talking crews of 20 people at a time. We're talking, you know, probably thousands of people altogether, but this particular faction, the really radical laborists in the Dockers, is a much smaller number. I think we're probably dealing with like less than 100 people altogether.
And like, are we negotiating with their money on the table?
Yeah. Well, it's favors at this point.
I see.
Yeah. Dava made it clear to Tasha that he had a hand in her taking out Hutton in the race. And he also had a hand in her taking second, which still gets quite a bit of money. I mean, it's not the first place purse, but it's nothing to scoff at. And so Dava positioned himself doing a favor for her, and she's doing a favor back for him at this point. And clearly she's willing to be flexible. She's willing to let you name your price, but you better believe she's going to be doing some negotiating.
So he kind of leans back in his chair. The way I see it is you beat out Hutton in that race because there may have been a little bit of help given.
Clank says, "Yeah, help."
Yes, I have heard. I understand someone managed to take Hutton out of the race.
Well,
I heard it was a chain.
A chain, you say? Yes, I heard something about someone dying in the race. Altogether, not the most common of occurrences, but not uncommon either.
if someone was to help us out in the same way, it sure would go a long ways to keeping a relationship open.
Yes. A relationship. Is that what you are looking for? What was your name again?
Benji Overstreet.
Benji, that's right, Benji. Perhaps I can help. How many dockers are interested in this technology I can provide?
Well, I'd say 200, give or take.
200.
And he is overestimating intentionally.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Why don't you give me a roll for that? Some sort of social thing to try and deceive me. What action do you want to do?
Let's see. Social. Probably not finesse. Oh, well. Employ subtle misdirection.
Yeah, you know what? Finesse could work. That could be applied socially.
Okay, cool.
Cool. So I'm going to say that this is a risky position still. And you are a smooth talker. You're a spider. You're a mastermind. You're used to this sort of thing. So I'm going to say that this could potentially be a great effect.
Great. Okay.
I have a question. Since we're doing these rolls, I did that one earlier. Don't I add a pip to my...
Only if it's a desperate action. And
okay.
like right now, Benji has a risky roll for a potentially great effect. He could trade that down to a desperate position, like expose himself somehow, and go from great to exceptional and get a lot of help.
Not just yet.
Okay.
No bonus dice.
Correct.
Hey, there we go.
So that's a 6?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So you do manage to, you tell her, 200 people, and she doesn't seem to bat an eye at that, and she says, oh, well, I suppose the efforts of the Dockers to eradicate these rats is a little more earnest than I thought before.
Big rats.
Growing
I'm
every day,
sure.
I'm told.
So, 200 Dockers want access to fire oil and incendiary mechanisms. My provider can supply them with these materials, but our supplies are limited. I think we can supply no more than 2 crates for these 200 Dockers. And she leans back for a little while and she lets that idea settle. And then she says, 2 crates, 10 incendiary devices in each crate, along with 2 containers of fire oil.
I would say Clink whispers things into Benji's ears. It's really nothing. He's just making it seem like he knows what he's talking about.
Okay. I'm not going to call for a roll on that one. I'll just let that one slide. She kind of eyes you quizzically.
Benji will kind of nod. You 2 crates divided by 200 men. That's doesn't go an awful long way.
Perhaps you have not seen fire oil in action, but if you have an offer, go ahead and make it, and then we'll do an appropriate roll.
He's got a highballer. I think maybe 4 crates would probably go a lot better.
4 crates. This is something I will need to consider. Why don't you go ahead and give me a roll? What action are you thinking?
Let's see here. I don't know if consort would necessarily work here. So probably sway. Yeah, I'm gonna go with sway.
Okay, cool. So I think this is twice as much as she offered you, so I think this is no longer a risky thing. This is a desperate situation. That's a big ask. And sure. I'm going to say this is standard effect because, again, you're familiar with this sort of thing. Negotiations are certainly common for a spider.
Okay.
Especially if you've got like some kind of leverage you could work against her or something.
Okay. Let's see. This dice. Nah, 3.
3?
Probably not
Okay.
great.
So desperate 3, it's the worst outcome. So she says, of course, 4 crates is completely out of the question.
Clank pipes up. Well, then 3.
3? I'm going to need a roll from you as well.
Oh, so he'll say, and I'll help you get the most out of your skiff.
Oh, okay. So this is not just barefaced asking for additional stuff. This is offering something in return too. I would say that this is a risky position, and potentially, it's going to be limited effect though because she has access to a mechanic already. But if you want, you can tout some of your street cred, lower your position down to desperate, and then go from a limited effect to a standard effect.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay. So how do you tout your cred in such a way as to kind of expose yourself to additional danger?
Well, you do know I am the mechanic of the electric Eeek.
The Electric Eek. Yes, I heard this name.
Well, you saw it on the back of our boat when we beat you.
And I think I saw the Eek in action too. This is something I have not seen before. I believe it
My specialty.
gave you quite an edge in the race. Tell you what, if you share Eek technology with me, I will share 3 crates of fire oil mechanisms with you.
Clank will lean down to Benji again. Again, really not saying anything related to what they were talking about. Because Benji heard what she said, and so he kind of waits for Benji to give him the nod or the shake.
And afterwards, he'll just kind of nod his head. Tell him go ahead.
I think this can be arranged.
Cool. All right. We didn't actually make a roll for you, but I think the Eek technology is probably proprietary for you guys. That's a big thing to give away, so I'm willing to just count that as an automatic success. So Tasha, she says, very well. 3 crates of fire oil mechanisms in exchange for Eek technology on my very own skiff racer. I will arrange the delivery to the dockers in 2 days' time, and you, of course, will supply me with the Eek technology at the same time. Do you find this agreeable?
I'll install it. But only I work on it.
Ah, you drive a hard bargain. Okay. Well, I am amenable to these terms. Now, I have. She pulls out a pocket watch from her pocket, obviously, and she says, well, the night is young, and I have places to be before the twilight."
Clink, as she starts saying that, like, starts writing down things, like, grabs a napkin and starts writing down things, and hands it to her. And it's a list of items that he says he needs.
Okay, and this is for the Eek technology?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, some of it is legitimate. A lot of it is just made up crap, and he even includes, like, a ham sandwich.
Okay. She looks at the list and she goes, a practical joker. How refreshing in this dismal city. And she gets up and she walks away unless one of you wants to stop her with something else.
Benji will kind of call after her. Tasha, see you in the canals.
Yes, we will see each other in the canals. And then she leaves. And not long after, the bouncer comes over, and it's clear that somehow she and him share somebody up the totem pole, share some sort of connection. And he comes over and he's like, all right, You did your business. I think it's time for you and that ridiculous bandana to get out of here.
We're not free to drink. Is what you're saying.
Not with that bandana.
All right.
Okay, so he takes it off his head, sticks it in his pocket. It's like, fine.
Very well. Sorry, I did the wrong voice. Very well. Be on with your drinks. And he goes back to the door.
When he turns back around, I reach into my other pocket and grab out a dirty rag and tie it over my head.
Okay, so you guys have a chance to drink and be merry and that sort of thing. At what point do you make your way back to the lair?
10 rounds in.
Okay, so Jonathan Black.
Kept losing count.
Okay, yeah. So to paint a picture of this city, the docks are basically in the northern part of the city. The only thing that's further north is a district called White Crown, which is super fancy. And across from the docks to the west is a district called Silk Shore, and that's where your lair is located. Your lair, as we had discussed, is an old dock area used by the Overstreet family once upon a time, but it's kind of a derelict building, and so you guys have direct access to the water for your boat. You also have a place where you can flop. But because you're tier 0, this place is not fancy. So, Jonathan Black, you're the first person to get back to the lair. And tell me you're in you go to whatever room you choose to go in, the one I guess they're most likely to meet you in. What does this room look like?
I almost picture it as like a cross between someone's like garage and like someone's basement mixed together. There's like some old ratty couches and like a small electroplasm fridge. We don't have an actual table. It's like a big spindle spool that like metal coil was on or something at one point. John Black would probably come in and actually like sweep all the shit off the table, because there's beer cans or whatever kind of cans and probably some old food or something. Basically adult clubhouse. Probably oil lanterns. This is rather old, in my mind. I don't know what the Overstreet family think, but for sure, for sure. So there's probably a couple oil lanterns in there.
I think maybe we've been like working on that. Maybe we've had Clank trying to like solve that, but we're like tapping into like a neighboring building's like electrical light. So there's like loose cables just like
Or
dangling
like
and stuff in certain
some
places.
sort of like ragtag water mill.
Right, exactly.
I'm probably a few cups in as well. Probably not as tanked. I'm working with what I got in the shack here. I'm probably just on the couch, my usual spot, as I would imagine. There's like an ashtray full of normal cigarettes, and like this small little package that I had picked up earlier today next to that hasn't been touched yet.
Very cool. I just realized that my audio was muted for quite a while, so the crowd could not hear me for a long time. But at least you guys could. I was talking, just spitballing back and forth with them, and I think the context is probably clear. But if nothing is, then just tell me in the chat, and I'll make it better. So you are chilling out, getting sauced yourself when Benji and Clank come in. Benji and Clank, at least Clank is 10 drinks in. What does this look like when you two come home?
Clank saying, so if it had wings, you could just fly over everyone. What do you think?
I don't think a boat flying is a good idea.
I think it's a great idea.
There's no water in the sky, Clank. A boat needs water.
Water falls from the sky.
I think it becomes a plane once it's in the air, Clank.
Yeah, then the boat would fall from the sky, Clank.
Okay, how about this? If it had a bubble over it, and you could go under the water.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, if anybody could pull it off, you could, Clank.
Okay, I'm gonna go work on this. If he falls over.
For someone that's gone on a Leviathan hunt, I wouldn't be so eager to jump in the water.
Do not discumber my courage.
My courage.
Good use of vocabulary.
Fuck off.
Likewise.
Benji kind of walks over to where Black is reclining kind of on the couch, and he kind of thrusts a mostly full bottle in his direction. I brought you a gift.
Ah, you didn't drink it all this time. Thanks.
No, not this time. This one's shit. Or soot.
It's only about halfway filled with froth this time. You're getting better.
I might have dropped it once or twice.
Yeah, it tastes like it.
The frost's the best part.
What? No. Who taught you that? You've been hanging out with Overstreet too much. I've been Overstreet.
But that's what they do in Akaros. Aren't you Akarosi? They put air in it, it's frothy.
I mean, it's only as frothy as you let it pour out to be.
I think Benji spots the box of the what are they? Spectral cigarettes? What is the
Electroplasmic cigarettes.
Electroplasmic cigarettes.
E-cig, if you will.
He spots it and he says, "You've been to see Valeris, I take it."
Yeah, and seems like the Bluecoat's got a hold of him. He's pretty roughed up there, and he's
well. Old Pinstripe could take a little bit of a licking.
Yeah, I mean that's what I said, but he's a little upset about it, which is understandable. I mean, a man in his position dealing with men in our position is.
Well, we'll be in his position soon enough, and better.
And that's what I'm saying. Once we get this shit taken off,
he'll be coming to see us.
Hopefully, anyway. Until then, how did the brokering of the deal go? How many crates did we get?
Well, luckily Clank wasn't that drunk whenever the meeting took place, because he saved my ass.
You bet your ass I saved your ass.
She's going to be bringing the dockers 3 crates of that stuff they were asking for.
Well, it's 2 more crates than we thought we were going to get.
Like I said, Clank outdid himself.
Good on you, Clank. This is not unsurprising. You're pretty on point with coming through lately.
I always thought I was the brains of us.
Yeah. Brains.
That's what we always say too, Clank.
And I keep him right here, and he points to his butt.
I was just saying this to Black yesterday.
You're black, mate.
Cool. So, one of you knows that Roth Dava was interested in learning about how the transaction went down, but I mean, he didn't need to know right afterwards. So, if you guys want to sleep off your stupor, that's fine.
Not
Clank's
a bad
gonna go
idea.
put his genius to the test and come up with a new design for the Eeek.
Very cool. Gonna tinker on that air blade or air fan. Wait, air fan, air blade fan. What is the thing we decided to create?
Boat
Boat
air
air
fan.
fan.
Boat
Upgrade.
air fan. That's the one. We know what we're talking about. Okay, so I think what will happen here. How's everybody feeling? Should we take a quick break, or should we jump into maybe 5 or 10 minutes extra of gaming before we take our break?
I'm fine either way.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and plow through. We can stop just before we jump into a score then. So, you guys go to sleep. Clank tinkers on the thing all night instead because he doesn't like
I don't like
sleeping.
to sleep.
Right. Benji and Jonathan, do you guys sleep at this place, or do you bunk down somewhere else? What's the situation?
I think Benji probably has a bed here, but this is probably not his usual place to sleep. I almost think that he might actually still live with his parents.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
You know, I mean, them being nobility, he probably has, a decent sized area of the house that's his or whatever. So he probably comes and crashes here like when everybody else is here and they've been drinking and stuff like that. So he'll probably be sleeping here tonight.
And I'm sure he has never told Clank where he lives.
No, not at all.
I think I probably have told Clank once and regretted it ever since.
Yeah,
Clank
I
doesn't have
probably
so much
told
as a home
Benji. I was like,
as
Benji,
a
you
series
listen
of
to me.
couches he crashes on.
Benji, you listen to me right now. If you want to be friends, do not tell Clank where you live. Do not tell Clank where you live.
Clank showed up in the middle of the night with some harebrained scheme that he had drawn schematics up for.
But you look out into the street from the window, and he's a silhouette standing there that's oddly ominous, but not at the same time.
Hey, when everyone's using Eeek-powered jetpacks on their person, you're all going to be have egg on your face.
Oh, man, we were here from the beginning. We supported you.
So then what I'm hearing is that Benji sleeps with his parents, or, in their house.
Sleeps with
anyway.
his parents. Stay in bed.
Jonathan, he has his own place to sleep at an undisclosed location. And our dear friend Clank, when he sleeps, probably just passes out on the floor of this lair that you guys have. Okay, cool. So that's how the night passes.
Yeah, I think John stays here as well, though, for the evening.
Okay, cool. That's fine. So the way, I mean, there's no daytime in Doskval, and it is the case that there's a twilight sort of thing because the shards of the sun that exploded 800 years ago gathered near the horizons, and so twice a day, twice in a 24-hour period anyway, there are moments when there's this kind of dull glow that shines from the horizon, and you guys sleep until the next twilight period, or you tinker away until the next twilight period, whichever the case may be. And then you get up and you know that you've got to go meet Dava over by the docks again. Are you all going to gather together before you head there, or are you gathering together once you've already reached the place?
I would say Clank tinkers every night, so something is always different on the boat. So he's probably always got to constantly update Benji about some new switch or something. And so I would think that's how they start their day.
Cool. Just constantly talking shop.
I think Benji probably wakes up and Clank is just like standing at the foot of his bed, just like patiently waiting for him to wake up.
How did you find out where I live?
Well, no, like I said, he stayed the night here.
Gotcha.
At
Okay.
The flop.
Okay. I misunderstood
Usually,
that
like
bit.
when they're drinking and stuff like that, he'll probably just hang there. He's got like a bed in the corner, or, you know, a small space off in the side where he's put like crates or something around it.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. Okay, so you guys gather together and you're heading over to meet Dava at the docks. And
I'm wearing the same greasy coveralls as the day before.
very nice. Did you even shower between, you barbarian?
What's a shower?
He works
Good
on a
answer.
boat. He just takes a little dip.
Into that nasty water. Okay. So you guys head over to the docks, and Roth Dava is in the docks. It's not like the dockers' main warehouse per se, but it's definitely one of their bigger ones. And he's got a little bit of an office set to the side. He's a foreman in the dockers' world. And it's kind of rare for you to see a foreman who is advocating for the rights of the other dockers. Normally the foremen are some of the kind of strike breakers, so to speak, you know. And Dava is actually outside this dock, and he's leaning up against a barrel, and he's looking out west across the bay toward the northern edge of Silk Shore. And right there's this gigantic tower. It's 300 feet tall, and there's this lightning that just crackles from it at all hours of the night. It looks like a gigantic plasma ball that has no glass around it, but somehow miraculously the lightning doesn't actually affect any of the houses nearby. It's always pointed sideways and outward into the Deathlands. And he's just looking at it as you come over. What was that?
Is it loud? Like, can you hear?
Yeah, I mean,
fanning and heating the air.
once you come within a few blocks of it, I imagine it gets fairly loud. But and so like the housing that's actually closer to these lightning towers is a little crappy because people are dealing with this sound at all hours of the night. But from where you guys are, you're so far away that all you see is just the crackling of the lightning in the distance. And Dava, he says, boys, thank you so much for joining me. I was just admiring that technological marvel of the lightning barrier out there. It does so much to protect us from those Deathlands out there, doesn't it?
Yeah, I suppose it does. You know, to be truthful, I don't think about it all that much, although I guess I should.
Yes, perhaps so. You know, I think about it often. I think about how the things that protect us are often not pure in this city. They come with drawbacks. For example, the lightning barrier keeps the ghosts out of the Deathlands. We still have ghosts in the city, of course, but a lot of them are kept beyond our reach. And that's good for us, but at the same time, the lightning barrier is a definite wall beyond which we cannot hope to grow. Meanwhile, women keep pumping out babies, men keep growing up, young girls keep becoming women, and the city gets fuller and fuller. It's tough. Sure, there are deaths, sure there are tragedies, sure there are people relocating to different cities, and yet every street corner and establishment in this entire city is fought over by some gang boss or titan of industry. Not that there's much of a difference when you get right down to it. But that's the trouble, isn't it? If you want to grow in this city, you got to push somebody else out. What do you think about that, Benji? A nobleman like yourself?
Well, truthfully, I know that there's a lot of people out there that have things worse than I do, and there's things that I'll never have to experience. Thank whoever's watching out. But there's enough here in the city if you're willing to grab it and hold on. But yeah, you got to make some room sometimes. And truth be told, you got to scrub some of the grime off sometimes.
Yes, we should all hope that when we seize a claim to this city, that we make sure we make it a little better than when we found it. That's what I'm trying to do with these dockers, you know. We're a beleaguered lot. We show up every morning, don't have a job to guarantee pay or bread to take home. We jockey for whatever we can get, and we're grateful for it. And then we work hard all day, we get our measly earnings, and we take them back to our families to share as best we can. We're trying to make our way up in the world, and I'm sure you can relate. The Electric Eeek is a marvelous watercraft, and your racing last week was a sight to behold, and yet you're new fish in a very old pond.
What if we flew above the pond?
I admire your boldness, Clank. I don't think I've heard anybody suggest we take to the skies in, a decade at least. I know a lot of people are worried about what lies between the cracks in the sky.
Well, sometimes those that need friends just need to watch out for one another, and I think that's kind of what we've got going on.
Yes, I think you're quite right. And, Mr. Black, you are a man about town. You know the seedy underbelly of this city fairly well, is that right?
Aye, sir. Better than most.
Yes. So as we're looking for opportunities to grow and expand our operations to suit our ambitions, I'm sure you're the kind of man who would know the best directions in which we might point ourselves. Is that right?
For lack of a better word or phrasing, yeah, I'd say that explains it pretty good.
Very nice. Well, I'll tell you what, boys. The dockers are doing their own thing. By the way, how did that transaction go with Tasha yesterday?
We can light up the sky.
That sounds wonderful. You told her about our rat problem, I understand.
We did, sir. Yes, and she said that you should have 3 crates here tomorrow or the day after.
3 crates full of rat poison, eh?
Mm.
I'm sure we'll find some responsible use for that sort of thing. I do appreciate it. While we're getting that ready, though, I wonder. We've sponsored you, and the dockers all are huge fans of the Electric Eeek. I think you'll find a lot of bets being placed during the next race, but, of course, you gotta spread your audience a little wider than the dockers if you're really gonna help us out. You gotta expand your influence a little bit. If I were you, I would put your ear to the ground and I would listen for an opportunity to expand that influence. I'm sure there are several options at your disposal.
It's good advice, and it stands to reason that a man such as yourself would give good advice. You're a man rising to the top, Rolf.
Why,
Good to
thank
know
you. Thank you, son. I do appreciate it. I appreciate it dearly. At this point, Coyle, his assistant, comes over, and again, they are diminutive, but not small and hard in the way that Tasha is. Coyle is small and kind of cagey. They've always got their hands kind of up here, they're always looking around and They've got this little notepad in their hands that they'll flip open every once in a while and scribble on. But they've still got these bandages over their face. You can't really tell the gender of this person based on the clothing that they're wearing. It's really baggy. And Coil just comes up and taps on Dava's shoulder. Dava says, "Oh, pardon me. Yes, Coil, what can I do for you?" And Coil flips open the notepad and points it to him. He's like, "Ah, yes, I do have engagements this twilight before we go back into true darkness. So I think, well, the twilight does not wait for any man. And I think it's time I perhaps bid adieu to you, gentlemen. But remember what I said. Influence is power in this city. And if you can expand your influence, you can expand your power. And that rising tide will float our boat as well as yours." And then he's going to go to each one of you. He's going to shake your hand. He's going to reach out for Clank first. He's going to reach out a hand for you.
Clank will wipe off his hand before shaking it.
Yeah. David takes it, and he says, "Ah, I love a good workman's hands. You are quite a specimen, I tell you. And we need your strength to support us, and I'm so grateful that you have lent your support to us, Clank. It means the world to me."
May the proletariat bescumber the owners.
Yes, absolutely. Bescumber the soot out of them. And then he turns to Jonathan, and he sticks out a hand too, although he takes care to pull out a handkerchief and wipe it off before he extends it to Jonathan. And he takes your hand and he goes, "Jonathan, I do so appreciate your eyes out here working for the cause of the Dockers. It means the world to me that you would put your services to work to make sure that we know what's going on, we know who to trust, and we know when and where to trust them."
My family's been here a long time, sir. It's my duty.
Yes, we appreciate that. A long history with the Docks goes a long way around here. He pats you on the shoulder, and then he moves on to Benji. And he, instead of holding out his hand, he brings his arms wide for like a hug. He wants to bring it in for the real thing.
Yeah, he'll embrace him.
All right, he comes up and he hugs you and he says, "Ah, Benji, a fearless pilot." He kind of goes back and grabs you by the shoulders and he's looking you in the eye and he says, "A pilot such as yourself could be the face we need to really sell the cause of the Dockers and secure some greater rights for us. But more importantly than a pretty face, yours is a mind that's going places. You've got the ideas, you've got the plan, and the plan is what we need."
Well, sir, I'm grateful that it could be put to a good cause. You know, there's been a lot that I've gotten up to that my parents might not be proud of, but I think eventually that they may be proud of this one.
Well, I certainly hope so. We should all strive to please our parents, but while they're still here.
Especially when they're the ones that control the bank accounts.
Well, every challenge has its reward, is that right?
Most certainly, sir.
He taps you on the shoulder again and he says, "Once again, thank you for being a part of this." And then you hear around the corner this voice yell out, "Aye! Ah! Dava, get your scrimey ass back here! We've got work to do!" And then Coil, taps him on the shoulder and starts tugging on his sleeve, and Dava says, "Ah, gentlemen, I have overstayed my welcome. It's time for me to get back to work. But go have your fun. Don't let me stop you any longer." And he turns around and he walks away. So we are going to take a break for, let's say, 10 minutes. It's 8:27 now. Let's meet back at 8:40. Yeah, that's what it would be. Actually, yeah, 8:40. And in the meantime, what I want you guys to think about while we're away is this idea of expanding your territory. If you can, you should take a look at the faction sheet in the Roll20 thing. You can take a look at the map of claims there. There are 4 that are most eligible for you, that are just branches off of the central layer thing. and you can pick one of those, and we will go into a score where you can expand your territory a little bit. In the meantime, everyone who's watching, I know we've got one gal, Karen. Thank you for joining us. And we are going to take a break, but keep your eyes peeled because we are on the prowl. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We are returned from our hiatus, and we are about ready to jump into a score. For those of you who are new to Blades in the Dark, the basic cycle of play is 3 phases. You have free play, which we just went through. It's just role-playing, however you want to do. You're gathering information, you're dealing with entanglements from previous sessions, that sort of thing. The second phase is the score, the actual mission that you're going on. And then the third phase, which we'll get to before the end of the night, is downtime, where we deal with the rewards and drawbacks of the score, and we set ourselves up for the next session. But we have a little bit of free play left to do because, as I teased before we went on our break, we are going to use this score to expand the crew's territory. It's called Seizing a Claim, and on your crew playbook, because every game of Blades in the Dark has playbooks for each character and then a separate playbook for the party as a whole. They've got these little concept maps, and each map has certain points on it that will point you to one or another different way to kind of give yourself a boost and expand your influence in the city. In this case, we talked a little bit while we were off air, and we had 3 different options for doing a claim. We have turf, we have covert drops, and what was the other one we had? It was... anybody have the playbook open? The one that's off to the left?
Informants.
Informants, that's right. Yeah. So the way this works, I'll tell you guys a little bit about this right now. Informants and covert drops are going to give you specific bonuses for specific circumstances. So for example, covert drops, I think, gives you +1 die if you try to sabotage something or you're doing espionage. Is that how that works?
So it's +2 coin.
Ah, okay. Yeah, so the idea there being that if your business is, involving, sabotage and something else?
Espionage.
Okay, yeah. If you do a score that involves espionage or sabotage, then you're guaranteed to get an additional 2 coin when the downtime phase happens. Informants, it's another similar sort of situation. I think that one is going to help you set up your missions ahead of time rather than help you benefit from them afterward. And then turf is interesting because turf doesn't come with any bonuses on paper, but if you hold turf, then it makes it easier for you to level up. You'll also notice on the crew playbook you've got rep, and I think you guys have 5 rep right now, and I think you need 12 total to be able to level up to the next tier of your gang and become more influential in the city. I think it's a 12 track for the turf, right? Or for the rep. And if you get a turf, then that becomes an 11 track instead. If you get 2 turf, that becomes a 10 track. And all of a sudden your threshold for leveling up is a lot lower. So that can definitely benefit you over time, even though it doesn't look like it gives you a whole lot, right? And I did a little bit of work ahead of time. I suspected these 3 were probably going to be the ones you guys were most interested in. So I did a little bit to flesh out potential scores, or at least determine the geography of what these different claims look like. And what we're looking at here, so Dava has left you, right? And you have the opportunity to schmooze around in this twilight period and the following night and determine what's going on. And because scoundrels are all hyper-competent individuals, I'm not going to make you roll to determine this basic information. For the turf, one of the dockers comes up to you and he says, he's connected to Dava and he believes in what you guys are doing. He's a real fan of the last race. He can't wait for the next one. And he said that there is a workshop that the dockers would be willing to set up for you. And that would give you a space where you could have access to some pretty nice machinery to be able to retrofit your ship, your boat. And that would be the turf option, this workshop that you could set up. And that would lead you eventually to having an opportunity to set up a gambling den or establish lookouts in the city of some kind. The next option, let's see, it was Jonathan. Jonathan was roaming around the streets, and he was looking around, and he knows that Clank is all about setting up these ambush spots around the city, right? Especially along these canal tracks. And he spied a few places that would be pretty helpful in setting these things up. So if you wanted to do covert drops, that would be a number of locations in and around the docks where you could set up ambushes, or you could store materials later to make sure that heaven forbid your lair is raided, that stuff won't be taken away from you. That's the sort of thing you could get from covert drops. And then informants, you, Benji, know that this city is all about the influence. Money is power, influence is power, and the people who have all the money and all the influence are the noble courts. You know, Benji, that out there is a noble court where you could introduce yourself, spread the good word of the Electric Eek, get people excited about these races, and then eventually maybe introduce the concept of Docker's rights to them as well. And even if you don't manage to get the information about Docker's rights from them, you're going to be able to be a fly on the wall among a group of people who are traditionally pretty opposed to workers' rights. And that would be the informant's claim. So based on those three, what I would like you all to do is spend some time making gather information rolls so that you can learn more about each of these claims and who controls them, what you might need to do to liberate them or claim them for yourself, and that sort of thing. So does anybody have any immediate things you want to do? Jonathan, I feel like this is actually a particularly good activity for your character.
One of my gather information questions is, where are they vulnerable?
Ah, okay.
So I feel like that is fairly applicable to this scenario.
Absolutely, yeah. And which claim would you be asking that question of?
That would be in response to the, I guess, put some feelers out there. What are we thinking for the one that's sticking out most for us?
I was leaning a lot more towards covert drops. Is what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, covert drops. That's kind of what I was looking at.
Drops. Okay. So maybe that could be like in response to the location, where it would be ideal for these to be beneficial in putting our opponents at a disadvantage.
Yeah, so you are, it says the most common gather information actions are surveying the situation to reveal or anticipate what's going on, and studying a person to understand what they intend to do or what they're really thinking. It says, though, sometimes you'll have to maneuver yourself into position before you can gather information, so you might have to prowl to a good hiding place or then study the cultists or something like that. But you can use any action, conceivably. And so you want to find out where they are vulnerable. Whichever group happens to be in control of these covert drop spots, you want to find out where they're most vulnerable. Is that right?
Correct.
Cool. And how are you going to go about doing that? What action are you using for this?
I think like a study would be applicable. Kind of just analyzing maybe where I see people of interest, kind of maybe usually I'm sure I walk this area a lot. Maybe this is something I've been pondering since our last race in response to like the sabotage we did. Noticing how people act in certain areas so we can set up a response, if you will, to the blind side or where they wouldn't expect it. Like
Absolutely.
If there's like a cafe or some sort of restaurant where most of the people sitting out on the patio or something have their backs turned to this particular area, so that would be a good spot. Or there's like a little nook here in between a bridge and building or something.
Sure, yeah. So survey would be a likely action for that, because survey is about, you're looking at a location or a situation to understand what's going on, but you suggested study. And study is something that you can use to really scrutinize a person, right? So if you want to use study, I think that's great, but I would like to see you focus it on one person, and I would like you to describe who this person is, I'll assign them to a faction afterward, but I want like a physical description of what this person looks like.
This guy is like upper middle class businessman. Probably someone who gets his money from a shadier side, while keeping a fresh front. So this guy is like a slicked back black hair. He probably looks a lot like Clank does. He's probably from Akoros as well.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of hard features, but kind of off-put by his well-dressed demeanor.
Yeah. So it almost looks like, I mean, I'm picturing a guy who's big and intimidating enough that he might look a little out of place in a suit that's as nice as what he's wearing.
Yeah, that's
Cool.
what I'm thinking.
Nice. Yeah, so you are trying to kind of case this guy. You're trailing him, and you're trying to figure out where he's most vulnerable, or where he's connected to the people who control this area to find out where they're most vulnerable. Is that right?
Yeah, kind of like he's getting money from someone here, and I'm trying to figure that out so we can work against them in the future.
I dig it. Okay, so let's see. We don't need to determine position or effect. All we need to do is for you to roll this action. So, I mean, you're going to be prompted to select a position or effect. Just do whatever is the first option there, and we'll ignore that.
And then input is standard, or effect is standard.
Yeah. The effect will actually change based on your result, but that's why it doesn't matter which one you choose.
Okay.
All right. Very nice. You got a 6?
Yes, sir.
All right. So, this guy, you're trailing him around, and you find that he keeps running into some people that you've recognized before, and it takes you a few hours to place where these people are from, but then you realize every single one of them you've seen as you're just kind of randomly casing the city to make sure you know what's what. All of them seem to report back to Hutton, the leader of the Grinders. And that really zeroes in on your search and your trailing of this particular figure. And even though he's well-to-do, and even though the Grinders are kind of like a lowly sort of gang, you are following him along, and you realize, oh, this guy is he's like a bankroller for them. He's giving them money from some higher source. And in fact, so you got a 6. This is a great result, which means you get exceptional details. The information is complete, and follow-up questions may expand into related areas or reveal more than you hoped for. So where are these people most vulnerable, right? You're walking through and you're seeing that these drops are all used by this guy to stash stuff. And then from there, you're watching the drops and you're watching people come up to them. And you piece together that there are particular waiting spots at each of these drops that are just far enough away to be inconspicuous, but it's where these Grinders are gathering, right? And so you know, first of all, that those spots are not easily detectable. So that would be a good spot for you yourself to hide if you ever take this claim. But also, you know that this is exactly where you need to strike these people if you're going to push them out of this territory. And so the only question that remains is, how are you going to push them out? And I suppose maybe an additional question, is it possible to leverage this rich guy against the people that he's helping right now? But we're going to leave it there. And
you said these are the Grinders drops?
Yes, these are the Grinders drops. They belong to the Grinders. And I will point out, too, you guys are not on great terms with the Grinders. Let me just tell you exactly what that faction status is. You have you've got a 0 faction status with the Grinders. So you've got a little bit of goodwill you can afford to burn, because last time you screwed over Hutton, but he didn't connect it back to you, thanks to the quick body double work of Jonathan Black.
I'm really just here for show.
All right.
Okay.
So that's something that you know. And there are 2 other claims that you can investigate. Would anybody like to gather information about either of those?
I will. I mean, I'm probably not very good at it, so I'll let Benji try first. But
and I feel like Clank might be most interested in this turf, the potential workshop.
Possibly, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, actually, yeah, because then I could. One of my questions is, what can I tinker with? With here, what can I tinker with here?
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, the Dockers would definitely take you over and at least show you the location of this workshop. but it's not an unused workshop. It's in use by someone else, and so it's clear you're going to have to push somebody else out of here. How would you go about investigating this place to see what you can tinker with? What action would you use?
I sort of just want to tinker and like set off a fire alarm or something to get everyone out of the building, and then I have all the time I want to explore.
You know what? I really love that idea. I'm trying to think of what a Victorian era fire extinguisher system would look like, but I think it's enough. I mean, this is a fantasy
Ow.
world fundamentally.
Fire!
Yeah, there might be like a bell or something that you could go ring.
Starting an actual fire.
I'm gonna set up like some sort of steam engine, like
Everyone out, there's a fire!
yeah.
So, Clank, you said there's a steam engine or something that triggers this
Or
alarm
like a
system?
whistle thing, yeah, that warns people to get out because something leaked or something. Like there's a what's the lightning stuff?
Lightning oil.
Lightning oil. Like there's a lightning oil leak, and so when there's a leak, this whistle goes off.
I like it. So, all you need to do then is make a leak for this lightning oil, and that's the trigger. Is that right?
Yeah.
So paint this picture for me. We know that there's a workshop, and I'm going to tell you that this building that the workshop is located in is on the water, and it's 3 stories tall. Where is this machinery located in the building where you have to like get in there and tinker with it?
It's on the it's on the side, not on the water side, but to the left of it. It's all in a little building off to the side, because you can't store all that inside the 3-story structure. That's not safe.
Of course not. It's got to be exposed to
they're
the
not-
elements. That's good.
Yeah, they're not expecting anyone to mess with it.
Sounds good. All right. So, and you want to do a tinker roll. Again,
do.
the position and effect doesn't really matter. So just go ahead and pick the defaults and give me a roll for that.
A 5 and a 2.
A 5. Okay, so a 5 is a standard success. You get good details. Clarifying and follow-up questions are possible. You manage to... So what does it look like when you sneak in here and you trigger this? What does the alarm sound or look or feel like?
So, I assume there's pipes running for this. What's it called? Sorry.
Lightning oil.
Lightning oil to go through the building to power the lights and stuff in the building. And so, off the side of that, there's the warning whistle that detects it. It's just a whole bunch of machinery, things, moving parts. I'm sure they have steam-powered stuff in there too, because you can't rely solely on lightning oil. So it's just a big, loud machine with a whole bunch of pipes coming out and steam coming off.
Very nice. And it's like a steam whistle or something?
Yeah.
Cool. I dig it. So, yeah, you manage to get in there and you tinker with it. It sets it off, and everybody evacuates the building. But I mean, the fire brigade is going to be showing up fairly soon to investigate this thing. So you got to make quick work. You get in there. You look at the machinery that's available, and you see, oh yeah, there's a lot that you could do with this machinery. Even if what you choose to do is just take this machinery, take it out of the warehouse, and transport it over to your lair, there's still a good deal of stuff that you can take care of there. However, you notice that there's a particular seal on most of it, and the seal is the Ministry of Preservation. The Ministry of Preservation is the group in town who is responsible for all of the shipping and import-export. It's responsible for distributing food and resources within the city. It's a big deal. This is a tier 5 faction. And so if you were to take this turf and you were to tip your hand that the Electric Eeek are the people who are responsible for it, there would be some major consequences for this sort of thing.
It's good to know.
Yeah. And you can find out more information if you want to, but you would have to do subsequent rolls. We do have a third claim potential, though, informants, and it's about nobility, so I feel like that might be a good opportunity for Benji. Is that something you want to investigate, or would you rather double down on one of the others?
No, I think I will go ahead and investigate it.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I mean, you find out that there is a noble, there are several noble parlors, and I think part of this result, you can ask whatever question you want, but part of this result will be zeroing in on a particular noble parlor that would be most receptive to your message. So I'm not going to tell you right away which one it is.
Okay.
So
what question
Yeah.
that I'm going to take from my gather information list is, how can I discover X?
How can you discover X? Okay, and what is it you're trying to discover?
Who is who has claim of this particular turf, this particular area, and
that is the perfect question.
What we can do about it?
That is the perfect question for this particular claim.
I thought so. It kind of jumped off the list. So.
All right. So, what action are you using to go in and case this parlor area?
I am going to hit the old consort.
All right, consort. All right. So again, position and effect doesn't matter. You want to know who's in control of this claim. Go ahead and give me a roll, and we'll figure out what to do from there.
Okay. 4.
A 4? Okay. So that's a standard result. You find out that this noble parlor belongs to a man by the name of Fitz. Mr. Fitz is what he prefers to be called, no matter who he's interacting with. I suppose he can't really insist upon it with his superiors, but, he's going to try. And the person who controls this claim of Mr. Fitz's parlor is none other than Tasha herself. And it's pretty likely that this is Tasha's benefactor. It's not guaranteed, but it's a likely chance. And you know that she's trying to make a claim here. She's trying to spread her influence to this area. And you don't know anything about the crew that supports Tasha. That's still really in the dark. And this Fitz guy, he's like a shipping magnate, and he's got a lot of money, but he's not particularly known for, like mechanical contrivances. He's more about just import-export type stuff. So maybe this dude is not the guy who's bankrolling her, but you're not totally certain. Now, based on this information, would anybody like to ask follow-up questions about any of these things?
I'm still definitely leaning towards the covert drops.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't want to make them angry at us, but of the 3 choices, like right now I'm okay with them because I want to keep Tasha on our side, and I don't think we're ready to deal with such a big tier as a tier 5 group. So
No,
I have a secondary question for my gather information list in regards to the covert drops.
Sure.
That is, how can I get them to be ignorant to us doing this?
Oh, how can you keep it on the down low or something?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, and so the task is to push the grinders out of this claim area and to take it for yourself. And you want to know how you can do that without raising their suspicion or awareness.
When you say it like that, it sounds a lot more far-fetched. Hey, who took my land?
I think it's
I
a
don't know,
really
man.
good question, though.
Here,
I think it's a really good question, though. This is something that you could definitely use to get an advantage going into the engagement role, right? So let's go ahead and ask that question. What action are you taking to find out this information?
I am going to use could I maybe use like hunt to find a patsy, or
Oh, okay. You want to find a fall guy. You're big into these fall guys. I like it.
like I said, I don't live in the spotlight, man. I'm all behind the scenes.
I dig it. Yeah. So you want to find a way to get somebody to take the fall for this situation. And this hunt roll is a matter of finding that perfect individual.
Correct.
Yeah. So go ahead and give me this hunt roll.
That's the same as before. No position or anything like that.
Yeah.
Okay, double fours.
All right. Well, you might have been able to find an exceptional target for this sort of thing, but you found merely a standard target for this patsy. And
That'll work.
you know what? It occurs to you, Benji and Valeris both have connections to the upper crust, and whoever this guy is who keeps making these covert drops, this big burly Clank looking guy, he seems to be a weak link. And if you could somehow frame him for trying to push in on this territory that he's already aware of, maybe you could get away with it scot-free.
A Clank-looking guy, not Clank.
Yes, that is an important distinction. This is the second Clank-looking guy that we've seen.
A lot of people look like Clank. So we're trying to pin it on the bankroll guy.
He's got one of those faces.
Clank's father was very, very charismatic.
Yeah, what happened, Clank?
I got a lot of siblings.
My mother.
His mother
I
was
take
not.
after my mother.
Cool, I love it. So, yeah, that's the information you have about this covert drop thing. I think we're ready to do the engagement roll at this point. Does anybody have anything else they want to do before we jump into this?
No, like I have another question that I thought was applicable, but I think honestly, Baron's role already got the same information. So
Sure. Okay, so if somebody has the faction or the crew playbook open, I think it's just above the notes section. There's a button for the engagement roll. And anyone is welcome to roll that, but we've got some things we have to factor in before we can actually do the roll, so that one doesn't count.
Oh, sorry.
Derek. Okay, so first of all, you start off with 1 die for sheer luck. And then we have to ask ourselves, is this operation particularly bold or daring? What do you guys think?
I think it's bold because we are boat racers. This is a little bit out of our element.
yeah, and the people that we're potentially messing with, even though they're not necessarily all that high of a tier, it sounds like they're better established than us. So
They are. The Grinders are a tier 2 faction, and in fact, this is not the first time that you've tussled with them too. So
Right.
I would say that this is a fairly daring operation. Cool. So then you can take an additional die for that. Is this operation overly complex or contingent on many factors? The operation, as a reminder, is to frame the payroll guy of the Grinders for trying to take over this turf.
I would say that's pretty simple. It's all kind of inclusive on one guy.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of factors.
Clank likes lots of moving parts, which is complicated.
The way I could see this going south is that you can frame the guy for trying to take the territory, but then how are you going to actually take the territory despite framing him for it? You know, if you're framing him, presumably he's going to fail. So how do you make sure it looks like he succeeds? That's a place where I could see some complexity, but I don't know if that makes it necessarily like, quote, complex. You know what I mean?
well, I mean, like if he has money and he's bankrolling or is connected to a bankroller, maybe we also take their money.
Oh, okay. Maybe there's some additional coin to be gained from this. All right. Yeah, you could be right. Okay. So, have we settled on this being a fairly complex operation then?
Yeah, there's a couple more variables than originally.
Okay. Then take -1 die, so we're back down to 1. We have to actually settle on the plan and the detail first. So you're going to go about doing this, and on the bottom of your crew sheet, I think it is, you've got a list of plans that you can engage in: assault, stealth, deception, transport, that sort of thing, right? Which one of these are you engaging in? And keep in mind, too, that your specialty is sabotage in the docks area. This is in the docks, but Whether or not you're able to effectively use sabotage in this moment, I'm not so sure about that.
You'd be surprised.
We're sabotaging this whole man's career.
Have you guys? I guess the plans are actually on your individual character playbooks, though. So do you see those?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was kind of looking them over.
Uh,
Either deception or social.
okay.
Maybe stealth.
I would say deception.
So deception might be focused on deceiving the grinders, whereas social might be more about setting up this guy for the fall. It's basically just two different time periods in this larger score.
I feel fairly comfortable going with social or deception, honestly.
I think social might be a little bit more applicable.
Yeah.
Because though it is a deception, it's a social deception, I guess.
Yeah, because I think with deception, we might have to end up dealing directly with the grinders more, and I think we want to avoid that.
That's a good point. So you're thinking more along the lines of a social encounter.
Yeah. I think so.
Okay. So then what's the connection that you can leverage? That's the detail here.
Can we blackmail him?
Well, I'm looking for like a person. I'm not looking for like an action so much. Do you have like a contact or a rival or something that you can invoke in this moment?
What about your dude, Baron?
Valeris?
Valeris.
Yeah, maybe that package he gave me actually had a note in it.
Oh man, I love that. Okay, so we don't need to determine any more right now. We know that it's going to be a social score, and we know the connection is Valeris. So
we need to know our load limit, right?
We do, yeah. So you also need to pick either the light, normal, or heavy load. Which one do you guys want to do for this?
I like normal. Plus,
And
we get 2 free items.
And remember, yeah, you do get free items because of your rigging. But remember, a light load is inconspicuous. A normal load, you look like a scoundrel. And a heavy load, you look like you're a scoundrel going to war, right?
Maybe light might be our option here.
Okay.
Yeah, plus because we've got light, and that gives us 3, and then we have the thief gear, which gives us an additional 2.
Mm-hmm.
So that's still a normal load, but we look like we're lightly equipped. So
For sure.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, light load makes sense to me. Just make sure you mark that on your playbook up toward the top of the item section. And yeah, so at that point we can jump back into the engagement roll. We're at 1 die, and we need to know, does the plan's detail expose a vulnerability of the target or hit them where they're weakest? So is your connection to Valeris really giving you an advantage in this situation, or is it merely your way into the situation?
I would say that this was probably an advantage. Whereas I had kind of scouted this guy out maybe in the past. I had noticed him and had talked to Valeris about it previously, and he was getting back to me at maybe people who didn't like him, people he was rubbing the wrong way.
well, also Valeris is your guy that gets you your illicit stuff, right? So
Yeah.
he's a dealer. So maybe this guy's got some kind of crutch. Maybe he's got an addiction.
Maybe he's got some like crippling debt that he's been like secretly funneling off funds for.
Okay, I
Yeah,
like it.
there
Yeah,
you
so
go.
I think this does probably expose a vulnerability of the target. So let's take 1 die for that. So 2 dice so far. Is the target strongest against this approach, or do they have particular defenses or special preparations? I really don't think they do. I don't think they're expecting this guy to try and turn against them. And I don't think the guy is expecting somebody to double cross him either. So I'm not going to make you subtract a die for that. Can any of your friends or contacts provide aid or insight for this operation? Valeris is definitely helping, so we can take 1 die for that. Are any enemies or rivals interfering in the operation? No, there aren't. So are we up to 3 dice now, I think? Okay. And then last question, are there any other elements that you want to consider? The tier, the location, etc. Now, I said that these drops are in the docks area, so they're on your hunting grounds, but the grinders are a higher tier than you, and the nobility is almost certainly a higher tier than you too. So I think that balances itself out. Is there anything else that you guys would want to incorporate, or what do you think?
What about the factor of us potentially standing to gain finances from this? Would that make it more difficult? Would that be a consideration at this point?
Would it be more difficult? It might be. I mean, you've seen these covert drop areas, so presumably you could wait until after a drop and then you could just loot them, you know?
Yeah.
But if you loot them, then that might be tipping them off that this guy really wasn't involved. So yeah, maybe that does make it more complex. You get. I feel like that could maybe lower it down to 2 dice. Okay, well, we've
Well, I'm
settled.
still a little confused. Are we just getting rid of their covert drop areas, or are we trying to establish our own?
You're taking theirs. It's not just that you're getting rid of theirs. You are taking them and using them for your own purposes. And so you've got to frame this guy as the one who took over this turf so that the grinders will be pointed against him and he won't know to do anything except defend himself.
To me, that doesn't make sense.
So
I'm sorry.
I think also what you've got to do is set up this guy to the point where he's got protection, and so the grinders don't want to move against him. I think you've got to set up like a cold war between these two people, really, these two factions. And that's where the social aspect comes in. It's all about schmoozing and about making that schmoozing convincing, which is what I think Clank and Jonathan Black will be most useful for behind the scenes. Cool. So go ahead and roll the engagement die. This is 2 dice. Yeah. And we'll see how this turns out. Ooh, a 6. Okay. Very nice. So you're in a controlled position when the action starts. Let's see here. Let's set the scene. So we know that this is a social thing, and we know that the dude is connected to the nobility, and we know that Valeris has made this introduction. We also know that the guy has some serious debt problems, and I like the suggestion that he's been buying too many drugs or something, right? And so let's see. It is another parlor. It's not Mr. Fitz's parlor, and it's not Peg Leg Pete's. But no, you know what? It is Peg Leg Pete's. We're on a tight budget on this show. We don't have a lot of money for sets, so it's at Peg Leg Pete's. And because this is a controlled position, lucky you, it's not the same bouncer on duty. And so Clank is not immediately recognized by this situation. But you know
I
what?
combed my hair before I went in.
Yeah, of course, of course. It may be the case even that you're not in the parlor. Maybe you're set up to do some other thing somewhere else in the city and we're splitting the party right off the bat, you know, but one of you at least is in this parlor. Who wants to take this first action when you walk in and you see this guy? What's this guy's name? His name is Narcus Rowan. And I'll
And this is
All
This
right.
is
Well,
the
he's already off to a
Clank?
bad start.
this is the Clank lookalike, or the person who's going to be helping us set that guy up.
This is the guy who's the Clank lookalike. He's the
Okay.
one who's been making all these drops for the grinders.
Gotcha.
And he's over at the bar. He's drinking some what would it be? I guess eel whiskey. He's drinking.
I'm potentially good with taking the first action. Well, hang on, let me see here.
And we're trying to schmooze this guy.
Well, you're trying to set him up. You're trying to set him up into a cold war between him and the grinders.
So could we like tell him some false information?
Well,
I guess what is our approach here? Because I'm willing to go inside. I just don't
Yeah.
know exactly.
I'm thinking maybe, yeah, we tell him. Let's see.
somebody's planning on setting it. We'll basically tell
I think,
him our
I think we
plan.
should tell him the grinders are planning to double cross him.
That
And,
all the drops he made today have been pilfered in an attempt to undermine him and make him look bad, and that was really Clank that went by and snatched them all up.
Yeah, that's where Clank's at. He's out robbing all of these, these blind drops while we're talking to this guy.
Is
we're
he?
telling-
I mean, I like that idea a lot. The question is, though, who's making the first play here? Is somebody going to convince this guy that this is what Clank is doing, or are we going to switch over to Clank and see him doing this?
I think let's jump to Clank doing it first.
Yeah, we can do that.
If Derek's cool with that.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm really trying to figure out how to fit something in because I really want to do it, but we'll see how it works. Okay.
Well, to start off with, I think you should at the very least probably check off subterfuge supplies from your item list, and that can be a disguise that you've put on, so that you're dressed up like this guy. That seems to be pretty appropriate to me.
Since he's Clink-like.
Yeah. We've already set it up. We might as well make use of it.
He looks like the guy. So when he's running through getting up all these, cash drops, they're like, "Oh my God, it's that guy that we see all the time."
Okay. I like it.
Ooh,
So,
okay.
I mean, you could be like wearing his clothes or something.
Do we know his name?
Narcus.
Narcus Rowan, yeah.
Then I'm also going to take documents. Ooh, okay.
Okay.
I have an idea here. I'm not only taking things from the drops, but I'm leaving documents behind. Some for the grinders, some for this guy, like to make him feel like one side's going to double cross the other. And I've also gone some other places this evening. We'll see if that gets in here.
Okay. So I think it would make sense if these documents had some kind of threatening message on them, but we're trying to deceive the grinders who are waiting for these covert drop spots while you're also taking this stuff. So what action are you using for this?
I guess prowl.
Prowl? Okay, cool. So we know we're in a controlled position. This is I'm going to say this is the time when this guy usually comes around, but for whatever reason, maybe through a flashback, we determined that he's been set up ahead of time to not make the drops right now, and you're doing them instead. So why don't you go ahead and give me a prowl roll? This is a controlled position, and I'm going to say it'll be a standard effect.
Valeris postponed his drug deal.
Ah, okay, yeah, that's the flashback that we need Jonathan to do then.
You
but
see,
first,
like,
let's.
the note in my hand.
Mm-hmm. But first, let's do
got
this. Let's drop off thing. So, Clank, go ahead and give me that roll.
I got a 5.
A 5, okay. So a 5 in a controlled position. You hesitate, right? So you're trying this out, and you think you see a spot where you can go over and make this happen, but there's a minor consequence. Okay, so a minor complication occurs. You're going over and you're doing these, you're looting these covert drops, and you're putting these messages in there. All of a sudden, you hear a whistle, and it's a very particular whistle. It's like a metal whistle, right? And the whistle happens to belong to the Spirit Wardens. The Spirit Wardens are responsible for going through the city and rounding up dead bodies and disposing of them so that these dead bodies don't become restless, angry ghosts that prowl the streets. And it just so happens that tonight, the Spirit Wardens have decided to make an unannounced foray into this region to clear up the alleyways and the canals of any ghostly spirits that happen to be there. So while you're doing this, there are going to be a bunch of Spirit Wardens who are patrolling as well and on the lookout for anybody who looks like they're up to no good.
Luckily, I'm a light load.
Yeah, so you're not super conspicuous right now. That's probably going to work in your favor. But you can see this going on, and it's a little nerve-wracking. So we're going to switch over to Jonathan Black. Jonathan, we just saw Clank putting these notes inside this these holes, right? How did it work out that we knew to do this in the first place? How do we know what's the connection between this guy Valeris and this situation? We've got a flashback we're dealing with.
I would say probably the trade of illicit substances.
Okay.
This guy has a problem. Valeris is the contact. I'm sure that these guys that this dude's dealing with, he's trying to like middleman through them to make himself look better for who he's dealing with.
So we're flashing back, right? And Valeris, I'm going to say that this is kind of a stressful situation for you. This is going to be a 2-stress flashback for you because you've just been on a shaky bridge with Valeris. He just got rounded up by the Bluecoats, and now you're asking him to get in here on a score and help you out in a tangible way, right? And so Valeris comes up to you and he's like, well, of course I shall require some sort of compensation for this risky action that I'm taking on your behalf.
Well, I wouldn't ask you to do something if I wasn't going to pay you for it, especially since this is what you're good at.
Yes, very nice, very nice. That's what I've always appreciated about you, Jonathan. Now, tell me, what is it exactly you want me to do here?
I need you to keep him off of his regular routes, really. Usually I guess I need you to prevent him from being where he's supposed to be.
Prevent him, yes. And I suppose you'd like me to deposit him somewhere specifically as well?
That's kind of the nature of the game, yeah.
Very nice. And what's the location you'd like me to do this miraculous feat that I'm about to perform for you?
Peg Leg Pete's, actually, where we can meet him there while we have our man do what we need him to do.
Ah, what a tangled web we weave. Well, so why don't you go ahead and pick an action? What action are you using to sway Valeris to do this for you?
I
I guess sway would be a natural choice, but you can choose whatever you want.
Consort, since he's my friend.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, connections from your heritage, friends, whatever.
We had established he was my friend,
Right.
this time. So.
Right, and we know this is a controlled situation because he did say that he does genuinely want to be your friend, but it's a stressful situation too, so you're going to take 2 stress. It's a controlled position, and I think it'll be a standard effect for this sort of thing.
So I'm setting it controlled, standard effect,
Mm-hmm.
and then no bonus dice. Ouch.
That's a 1. That is too bad. So, you can. He says, "This is the most ridiculous plan I've heard of in at least a year, and I expected better from you, Jonathan. I don't want to help you like this. It's going to need to be worth my while." And he's going to do it for you, but you're going to have to give him a coin for it.
I can do that.
Okay, and a coin, just to be clear, is like a week's wages, so it's not an insignificant chunk of cash, right?
I have 1, and I feel like Jonathan, in his position and the people he knows, would be willing to secure that, that bond there with that generous offer.
Yeah, okay. Well, he's down for that. So you manage to convince him. You give away the coin. He's like, but I did say I wanted to be your friend, so I suppose I'll tell old Rowan that it's time for me to take a break tonight, and he's going to have to find something else to do, or a different location and time for me to deliver my goods to him. So then flash forward, and we are here in the parlor. Benji has just arrived. Rowan is over at the bar, and Valeris is right next to him. And in fact, Valeris gives him something on the bar. The guy gives him back some cash. Valeris stands up. He buttons his he buttons his coat. He turns around and he sees Benji. Doesn't pay him any attention, but as he's walking by, he says, "You're on, boyo."
Black says hello. And thank you for those.
Yes, of course. I'm sure I'll see you sometime later. And by the way, if you're ever looking for any substances, you just let me know. I'm only too happy to provide them.
Well, truth be told, my drug is speed. So,
I've got plenty of speed. I'll come find you sometime.
Behind the wheel of my boat. So maybe you'll come to the races sometime. I'll show you what it's all about.
Perhaps. I have sworn against these dismal lower class affairs, but perhaps I'll be there one day, who knows? And then he's going to leave. So you're not alone in this parlor. I'm going to say there are probably a dozen other people here, but at the very least, you've got a clear path to Mr. Narcus Rowan.
So he is going to make his way over to the seat that was just vacated by Valeris, and kind of lower himself down onto the stool. Order a drink.
Okay.
Something that might be a little out of place. Something that shows that top shelf kind of stuff.
Sure, yeah.
Something that this place might not even have.
So this place is like upper middle class. And so, like I mentioned, they've got mushroom wine from Severos. They've got eel whiskey, that sort of thing. But like real grape wine, that would be rare.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he's gonna order.
Cool. Okay. What wine? White or red or light or heavy or what?
I'm from the Dagger Isles, so I think there is a particular kind of white wine from the Dagger Isles that is, it's kind of a delicacy. It's drinking like as a dessert wine. It's not even, drinking during a meal kind of a thing. It's meant to be appreciated on its own.
Sure. Yeah. So the bartender Pete, he's like, beg your pardon. You want Dagger Isles dessert wine?
You do have that here, don't you?
I'm very sorry, sir. Very sorry. I'm afraid I don't carry any of that here.
Oh, that's a shame. Well, I guess I'll have whatever he's having. He's gonna thumb towards Narcus.
All right. The bartender Pete, he's like, oh, very well. Eel whiskey it is. He pulls out a little glass. Would you like it neat or on the rocks?
On the rocks, please.
Very nice, very nice. He pulls out a bigger glass, puts some ice in it, and then pours you a whiskey. So whiskey is like a golden amber color. This has got a tinge of weird green blue in it. To our eyes here in the real world, it probably looks disgusting, but to you, it looks very much like normal eel whiskey. The guy sitting next to you, though, Rowan, he kind of lifts up his drink and here's to surprise evenings.
Here's surprise indeed, and he'll kind of tip his glass towards him just a bit before he kind of sips some back. Hopefully your night's going better than mine.
Well, my usual plans have been changed, but nothing I can do about that.
Yeah, sometimes things are just out of our control. You don't look like you're doing so well. Doesn't look like the whiskey's quite cutting it.
He looks at you suspiciously, and I'm going to need this to be an action to try and get into his good graces, because this is not exactly a conversation you would have with a stranger, right? So what action are you making to kind of get in here?
I am going to use sway.
Okay. And we've established this is a controlled position. You're starting off in a good spot. I'm going to say this can be... this is going to be a limited effect, though, because this guy is not easy to trust people. So would you like to trade position for effect? You can go down to risky and up to standard.
Yeah, I will.
Okay, and then would you like to push yourself or make a devil's bargain to give yourself an extra die and make things a little harder for you?
Yeah,
Okay, would you rather push yourself or make a devil's bargain?
devil's bargain.
Okay, cool. So I'll give you an extra die, but as a result, you really need to push that there's a conspiracy going on. You need to rush into this thing. No time for bullshitting. You need to get into his confidence that way.
Okay, and I think I already selected the first the position already.
Okay, you can probably just click cancel and start over again if you want.
Okay. So here we go.
So it's risky, standard, and 1 bonus die, I believe.
Sway, risky, standard. Style. Okay. Hold on to your butts. Hey, there we go.
It's a 5 or 6 total.
2 5s. So it's
2
one,
5s. Okay.
It is a 5.
So you do it, but there's a consequence. I'm gonna say you end up in a desperate position, right? So how are you tipping your hand to this guy? He says, wait, what did you say to him just before you rolled? You asked. He said he's not looking so good, and he's like,
looked like the whiskey wasn't quite cutting it.
yeah. He says, who's asking exactly?
Well, I just happen to know that there's somebody that's muscling in on your territory, your way of doing things.
What are you talking about?
The oh shit, what is their name? Grinders. The Grinders. They're making a move, looking to clean house and adjust some things, and I think they're unhappy with you, from my understanding at least.
So he is going to look at you and scrutinize you for a little bit, and then he's going to say, let's talk about this somewhere a little more quiet than the bar here. And he gets up and he walks over to a booth in the corner and he sits down.
Okay. This is a big guy, right?
Yeah. I think he's bigger than you anyway.
Yeah. Is there a chance that the bartender might have left the bottle nearby?
Sure, yeah.
He's gonna take the bottle with him.
Okay, yeah, and the bartender sees you and he's like, I'll just charge it to your account, I suppose.
He kind of waves him off.
Yes. Very good. He goes back to, polishing glasses. So you go over and you sit down next to our dear friend Rowan?
Yeah.
Okay, you sit down, you place the bottle on the table, and under the table you hear the cock of a gun.
Whoa.
And he says, how the soot do you know I'm connected to the Grinders?
You might think I look stupid, but I'm not. I've got friends. They know I'm here. And if anything happens to me, well, let's just say you're going to go down in flames, friend.
If the Grinders are moving against me, I might go down in flames anyway. And
Maybe.
Might as well take someone with me, shouldn't I?
Well, surely not somebody who's come to just warn you of the danger.
He looks at you, and at this point, we smash cut back to Clank on the streets. And you are trying to navigate this atmosphere with these spirit wardens all around, right?
Yeah, but the good news is I set up a distraction in
Oh.
case of the situation. Just a little something at the house of that bouncer that annoyed me.
All right, sounds good. What kind of distraction is this, Clank?
Well, his building might fall over. We'll find out.
Oh, jeez. Okay. So I would imagine this is some sort of action related to sabotage?
Yeah, I'm gonna wreck something.
Okay.
That takes. That doesn't take fine wrecking tools, does it? I don't know.
You can have
My
fine
plan
wrecking
is to-
tools.
Well, I know I'm looking for regular wrecking tools. I don't
Well,
see that, though.
if you take the fine wrecking tools, that just increases the position or the effect, I'm sorry. It increases the potential effect of your action, right? So I was going to say you're in a risky position, and if you're trying to bring down a building, that would be pretty tough, so it would be risky and limited.
Well,
But with
maybe
your-
just a wall. Like it's not a lot. It's just something to cause a distraction to make all these wardens go to that area.
Sure. And you know what? I think this would maybe be best to handle as a flashback. And so this is, I mean, you're familiar with setting up ambush points and sabotage points and that sort of thing. So I don't think this is particularly stressful for you. It's just going to be one stress. And this is a wreck action. If you use your fine wrecking tools, then we're looking at a risky action for standard effect. Would you like to trade that down to desperate and up to great effect?
Sure.
Okay. And how does that make your situation harder? What you are going about these drops. What is it about this explosion or whatever that's going to make your job even harder and put you in a desperate position?
Well, just the fact that there are these wardens wandering around in the area that I'm in.
Okay, so maybe it'll get them off of your immediate case, but it's actually going to draw more people to the area to investigate what's going on.
I would assume so.
Okay, so I think what that would mean, you're going down to desperate here. Your next action could be controlled after that, but then it's going back down to desperate. And that's what that would look like if you manage to get a full success on this. Do you want to push yourself or take a devil's bargain in this situation, or what?
I don't remember what a devil's bargain is.
Devil's bargain, you get an additional die, but I get to decide a way that the game becomes harder, and I present that option to you before you would take the die. So what I'm going to say, if you take a devil's bargain, you can get an additional die for it, but the explosion is right next to the canals, which have some dead bodies that have been dumped in them recently, and so the explosion is going to agitate ghosts and actually give the spirit wardens extra work to do too. So not only are they going to be distracted by this explosion, they're also going to be on greater edge because they've all of a sudden got a lot more work than they realized they would.
I'm actually okay with that.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Man, I hope you deal with a ghost tonight. So let's see. It's going to be a desperate position for a potential great effect, and you're pushing yourself, or you're taking devil's bargain, so you get an additional die. And go ahead and roll, and let's see what comes up.
Oh, only a 4.
A 4. So a desperate position, you do it, but there's a consequence. You suffer severe harm, a serious complication occurs, or you have reduced effect. I'm going to say this is severe harm. You realize that in the moment that you're setting this off to cause the distraction, oh crap, oh soot, the explosion is closer to you than you realized. And the debris from this is going to come out and just like pummel you all over. So you're going to be, this is severe harm. You will break some bones from this stuff hitting you. But you can always roll to resist it.
Okay, what do I roll to resist?
So you, this is going to be, what is the attribute connected to wreck? I think it's
Prowess.
Prowess, yeah. So you're going to make a prowess resistance roll. And you're going to take 6 stress minus your highest dice result.
Well, I might be taking some trauma.
Haha, good. I really want you guys to face some trauma.
Because I only have 5 ticks left. Okay, so just a straight, no bonus die.
That's right.
Okay, 6 minus the 5. All right, so
Okay.
just 1.
So just the one stress. So you realize, oh crap, this wall is going to explode like right in front of me. I think you probably dive for cover at the last minute and you managed to avoid this debris. So congrats on that. But now all of a sudden you hear even more whistles and even more urgent whistling. And then you also hear in the distance this
You know I'm freaked out by ghosts, so
I do indeed. So
I've done my getting in the drops, right? Already?
well, some of them anyway. I don't know that you were able to get to all of them, but your next action is controlled. So you want to go ahead and roll for that and see what happens?
Yeah, because I want to hurry and get out of here now.
Yeah, that sounds good. So you're going to do some more of these drops. This is a controlled position because there's a substantial distraction. So go ahead and give me that. It'll be a standard effect, but if you want to downgrade to risky, you can upgrade that to great and just take care of all of them this round.
Wait. If I do what?
So here's the deal. Standard effect, you can get most of the covert drops at this point. And then you can either choose to ignore the rest of them and just forfeit that profit, which would be, I'm going to say, 2 coin. Or you can stick around and try to get those in the next round when it's going to be desperate again. Or you can downgrade to a risky action instead of a controlled action, which would take you from a standard effect to a great effect. And if you succeed on a great effect, then you're able to just rush and get all of them this round. Does that make sense?
Okay, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to push myself.
Okay. So you're trading position for effect. You're also adding 2 stress to push yourself, so you get an additional die. So this is a risky position, a potential great effect. It's your, what is it, prowl or whatever?
Yes.
Prowl plus 1 die.
Mm-hmm.
And then go ahead and give me a roll.
Oh, that sucked.
Risky with a 2, things go badly. You suffer harm, a complication occurs, you end up in a desperate position, you lose this opportunity.
We're
I think
apparently going to try to resist that again.
yeah, you can. So I think what would happen would be that you would lose this opportunity. You can see as you're going along, this explosion happened, and the grinders who were waiting to go pick up these covert drops noticed that you were picking up some of them in a way that was not the normal way. And all of a sudden, they're running for the other covert drops to recover whatever coin they put in there so that you can't get your hands on it. And so you're going to lose this opportunity for action unless you resist this roll.
Okay, I'm going to resist.
Okay. And again, you did, this was Prowl, so it's going to be another prowess resistance.
Yep, so 6 minus 4 is a 2, so I am topped out on stress.
You maxed out?
Yeah.
Okay, so you avoid the
I'm not
consequence.
above it. Yeah.
You didn't lose this opportunity. You did manage to get to some of the covert drops, but you still forfeited a couple of them. So you're going to miss out on 2 coin from the fulfillment of this score, right? Which is unfortunate, but you are still alive. And now you've done this. Your only concern is getting out of here. You're dropped out for the rest of this moment, and we'll come back to you in a completely different moment. But you have to decide which trauma you're going to take for your character.
Well, okay, so do I take a trauma when I reach the top or just bypass the top?
When you reach the top, it resets. Your stress is cleared, and you take a trauma.
Okay, I'll take a trauma.
Okay. So
I am paranoid.
paranoid. Okay. So this is a fraught situation for sure. Everybody on every side of you, and this has taught you a lesson about how you need to conduct yourself in the city. And now the cool thing that you have a trauma, you are 25% of the way from having to retire this character. If you get 4 traumas, the character's done. His life of crime is over. But your trauma is an additional XP trigger for you now. If you suffer from complications due to your trauma or your vice, you can mark XP for that. So you have a little bit of an extra chance to get more XP. But you grab a couple of these.
Over?
Do what?
My stress starts over?
Yeah, you're at 0 stress now. So you grab a couple of these covert drops and you GTFO. We're going to switch to...
There are damn ghosts in this.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't want to be around for it. I almost feel like Haunted would be an appropriate trauma too, depending on how it shakes out. But I like Paranoid. That's got good potential. So meanwhile, Jonathan Black, your only action so far has been a flashback. So you have the opportunity now to be in the moment. Do you want to be in the moment? And if so, would you rather be near Clank, or would you rather be near Benji, or would you rather do something completely different?
I don't think I'm in the moment.
Okay.
I think that me not being there is the separation between Valeris and Benji that kind of keeps us one step away from who we're trying to frame, I guess.
Sure. I have a suggestion. You are a man who knows people and places and events, right? I would suggest, perhaps, that the grinders have enemies. And maybe some of these enemies could be connected to the guy you're trying to frame and start this Cold War. So maybe you could do a flashback where you are trying to recruit these people.
Yeah.
Could it be Tasha's people?
Tasha's people. Well, you don't know who Tasha's people are. But let me
Oh,
list
that's
off.
right. That's right.
Not yet, anyway. Let me list off the enemies of the Grinders for you, because you would know this information. The enemies of the Grinders are the Bluecoats, the Imperial Military, the Leviathan Hunters, the Sailors, and the Silver Nails. And the Silver Nails, I believe, are a group of people who spend most of their time outside the city, so they're probably the least appropriate ones.
I mean, Leviathan Hunter sticks out as a big one for me.
Sure.
Just because that's the only contextual one I have.
Sure. Okay, so Leviathan Hunters, you know them, and the question just becomes, how can you connect that to... oh, did he drop out? Is anybody else missing him right now?
I'm not seeing any video, but his square's still there.
Yeah, this is the same way it looked whenever you three dropped out earlier when I was narrating. So I think he may have to jump back in. We'll see. I'm gonna reconnect these.
Oh, and then you just bounced.
Yeah, I reconnected the video feed to see if we could get. Oh, he dropped out. Yeah, it's a bummer. Okay, well we'll come back to him in just a minute then. For now, let's say so back in the tavern, or back in the parlor, you are talking to this guy Rowan, and you've just said, I'm just trying to help you out, or whatever it was that we ended on. And he says, how do you propose to help me right now?
So, I don't know if this is a possibility or not. We really got to try to convince this guy, though.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to try to do a flashback to protect myself, but I think it's more important that we get this guy where we need him.
Well, as far as protection goes, you could always just tick an item off and say that you have a weapon too, and that doesn't even need to be a flashback thing.
Yeah. And that doesn't cost an action to do?
No.
Okay. So yeah, I think I have italics items don't count for the load, which
that's correct.
Isn't a huge deal because we've already got open slots. But I am going to one of my items is a concealed palm pistol.
All right, and that's a zero load item.
Yeah, it's italicized for the spider.
Very nice.
So I think when the explosion goes off, there's a moment in the parlor where everybody's kind of like, what was that?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. It may have been far enough away that it didn't really do anything, but it was probably loud enough that it at least, gave some people a start,
For sure.
including Narcos. And in that moment, I pop my hand forward, and this spring-loaded pistol comes out of my sleeve and into my hand, so that by the time that he finally puts his attentions back on me, this is now pointed in his face. And then I'll just kind of lower my hand down, so that way the rest of the bar is not drawn to what's going on, kind of behind the bottle. And I'm going to tell him, look, we've got some friends in common. And I just thought it was polite to let you know that your people, who are not friends of mine, were starting to do some rather nasty things behind your back. A thank you would be sufficient.
So you're telling me the Grinders are double-crossing me, and you've got a mutual friend, and all you're looking for is thanks?
Well, thanks has a lot of colors, friend.
I see. How much do you want?
Well, there's how much you willing to pay?
Might be worth a coin.
All right. How about two? And I'll make sure that the information about this meeting never comes up.
Huh. So this is definitely going to be some sort of action roll.
Sure.
What action would you like to take?
I think I'm gonna go with consort.
Okay. And I'll be honest with you, I can't remember what your position was last time, but I know it's in the chat based on your last roll.
It was risky. No, hang on.
Control.
Yeah, sway was risky.
Okay. Well, I think pulling a pistol on the guy is going to take you down to a desperate position.
Excellent.
So that's the thing. But desperate position for sure. And I think, I mean, you know this guy's fairly well-to-do. He's got money, so maybe 2 coin isn't unreasonable. I think that could be a standard result.
Okay. So consort with a risky, no, not risky position.
Desperate.
Desperate?
Yeah.
Position.
That does mean you
And
get to mark experience,
standard
just to be clear.
Right. That means I do what? I do get to?
Mark experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Standard effect, no bonus dice.
Mm-hmm. Unless you want to push yourself.
Yes.
6. All right. Cool. So you do it. He considers this for a moment, and he says, 2 coin, huh? And on top of that, you might do me a favor.
Yeah. I think maybe it's the beginning of a friendship.
Yeah, it's the beginning of something. I'll come calling sometime. You can count on it. And in the meantime, I think it's about time I left and took care of this situation you just so graciously informed me of.
You're welcome, friend. And he kind of pops the pistol back into his sleeve and then picks his glass back up. Resumes drinking.
All right. So he's going to march off, and he's going to excuse himself. He downs the last of his whiskey, and he heads out of there fairly quickly. Jonathan Black, we were just talking about you rousing the Leviathan hunters. What we need to know is what's the connection between the Leviathan hunters and this guy, Rowan, that you can exploit for the sake of making the grinders think that he's called them instead of you?
Though I don't know for sure, I know my family at least shares similar lineage with him, so maybe he's got family somewhere in the Leviathan Hunters. And unbeknownst to the grinders, he's kind of maybe not unbeknownst to the grinders. They are under the impression that he has left the Leviathan Hunters to come work for them, and it's like this new light, if you will, is maybe he's backstabbing them as like an informant for the Leviathan Hunters or something. So maybe he's got family, or
okay, he's got some sort of family connection to the Leviathan Hunters, and you're going to exploit that to send him out teaching the grinders a lesson since you've proposed that they double-crossed him or something?
Yeah.
Cool. So the Leviathan Hunters, they are definitely a higher tier than you, so I'm going to say this is going to be a chancy situation. I don't know that it's desperate, but it's definitely risky, and I think the effect would be pretty limited. You don't have a ton of clout. And so if you want, you can trade down to a desperate position to have a standard effect, but you would need to find some way to make your position compromised, you know? Maybe like revealing yourself or something. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe I will reveal myself in the black name, which maybe not as much anymore doesn't hold as much clout here, but it's something that's been said among the colors of this gang before.
All right then. So somebody knows now that Jonathan Black is involved in this thing to get the Leviathan Hunters to respond to this alleged offense from the grinders.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's an appropriate desperate action. And so this would be desperate with a standard effect. Do you want to push yourself? Do you want to take a devil's bargain? Anything like that?
No, I think I'm fine with the current circumstances.
Okay. And what action are you using for this?
Consort for sure. Relying
Consort.
heavy on my heritage.
Okay.
The black name, damn it.
That's right. All right. So go ahead and give me that roll, and make sure you mark experience in the what is it, resolve track or whatever. Yeah.
All right. I'm in a risky. I think I had submitted too soon. I'm in a desperate for standard effect. No bonus dice.
4.
And that's 6. No, that's not me. Yeah, 4.
Okay. So here's the deal. You do it, but there's a consequence. In this case, a serious complication occurs. So they demand you lead us over there, and you point out the grinders that are responsible for this, and you show us their faces, and we'll do whatever you want to help out our buddy Rowan. Do you want to accept this serious consequence and really tip your hand, or do you want to resist the consequence and take a bunch of stress?
I'm gonna resist the consequence.
Okay, so what you'll do is you'll roll resolve, and it's equivalent to however many pips you have in the first column of that thing, but that's automated. All you have to do is click the word resolve, and it'll start it up. And
God damn it!
so you take 5 stress from this situation.
All right, so give me back the real dice because I can't fucking roll high in this shit for the life of me.
That's tough. All right, well, so you managed to weasel your way out of this situation where you decide that, like, you convince them that you're just going to tell them where to go and that they'll know who to look for or whatever. But they're like, they immediately think that something's up here, and they don't necessarily trust that you're telling them this in good faith, and that could have some ramifications later on.
God damn it!
Yep.
Hey, look, guys, I'm Jonathan Black. I'm lying to you.
All right, well, that's that. And sure enough, Clank, as you're fleeing the streets, you find like a quiet place to collect your thoughts for a little while, and you can hear that the spirit warden whistles are growing louder, but there's also another commotion. And you peek out just in time to see that there's a whole squad of Leviathan Hunter sailors who are mean SOBs. They've got all their equipment with them too, and they are taken to the streets and they say, "We here." There's one guy in front of him. It's actually a woman. She's probably about ready to retire. It's actually amazing that she's lasted this long on the Leviathan Hunter crew because there's really high turnover and mortality rate there. But she's like, late 40s, and she's really broad and squat, and she's got this like pile of a face, and she is walking down this sidewalk, and she's like, "All right, we hear our buddy Narcus Rowan is in trouble, and we're here to find the grinders. Where are you? We're gonna track you down, and we're gonna make you pay for this." And this is your opportunity to GTFO. I think at this point the goals of the score are accomplished. So I don't know that we even really need a roll to escape anywhere. Jonathan's not in any danger. As far as we know, he's back at the base because everything he did was ahead of time. Benji is in the parlor by himself. Clank is in a position where he can't escape. And so I think we're good to switch to downtime at this point. Does anybody have a last thing they want to do, like a parting blow or anything like that?
I guess not.
Okay.
Actually, can I blow something else up?
Sure. What do you want to blow up, buddy?
His sense of security.
Just, no, I guess not.
Okay, fine. That's fine. So you all make it back. You reconnoiter at the lair, and you find out. What was that, Benji?
This may be too after the fact. Just let me know if it is. But one of the items that I have also italicized for being a spider is a fine cover identity.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if I could potentially have that be in place for the meeting that I just had with Narcus.
Ah, so you were coming under an assumed name. You weren't Benji in this moment.
Right.
Cool.
Right.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to handle that with like a flashback or if it's a.
Because it's an item, I think it would just be enough for you to check that box, and you
Okay.
are assumed to have this cover identity in place whenever you come in there. But what is the cover identity? Who is this guy?
This guy is. Ooh. Okay, so this guy is actually a deceased member of the royal family that Jenna serves.
You just can't leave this girl alone.
Nemesis for a reason, man. I mean,
Good. Yeah, she's definitely gonna come for you sometime soon.
yeah.
All right, yeah. So it's a guy who's a member of this noble house, to be determined later. But you've got this cover identity, so the trail is thrown off, and we can go into downtime now. So, well done. Everybody did a great job, and what I would like to do, we're kind of pressed for time. This went on a little while longer than I expected it to. So I want to handle payoff and heat of downtime, and then we'll do the entanglements and actual downtime actions offline via text or something. So payoff. Your crew earns 2 rep per score by default. If the target of the score is a higher tier, take +1 rep per tier higher. This target was the Grinders, and they're tier 2, you're tier 0, so that's another 4 rep total for them. You earn coin.
For them, so another 4. So 2 and then another 4.
Sorry, you earn 4 total.
Okay.
4 total rep.
Okay.
And let's see here. You earn coin based on the nature of the operation. This wasn't really something where you could have earned coin, but then going and looting these drop boxes, I think that's going to be 8 coin for you all. This is some serious loot that you picked up. Even though you missed out on some of it, you still got a handy purse of coin. However, subtract coin equal to your tier +1 if you pay a tithe to a ward boss or a larger organization. And I think Jonathan owes some coin to his buddy Valeris. So Jonathan's paying 2 of that coin to Valeris, and you guys get to keep 6 coin for yourselves. Does that sound fair? Cool. Next, we're going to deal with heat. So after a score or conflict with an opponent, the crew takes heat. Add +1 heat for a high-profile or well-connected target, +1 heat if the situation happened on hostile turf, add +1 heat if you're at war, +2 heat if killing was involved. So this was, I think, a pretty smooth and quiet operation. There was some complications here and there. There was an explosion. Maybe that does take it up to contained. But contained standard
it was a
exposure.
contained explosion.
Yeah. Well, but it also says,
There is a wall of a building that is now missing.
if you're never connected to the thing, though, like if nobody actually knows it's you that did it, then it's technically 0 heat, but it's also technically 0 rep.
So, I mean, my wrecking, you can't tell it's
Let's
from
take.
me.
I guess we did kind of openly agree that we weren't. I don't know the mechanics. Don't listen to me.
I mean, it's all just determined by the narrative. And so the narrative was that you guys wanted to frame this thing without inserting yourselves into it. So maybe it's the case that you don't get any heat, but you also don't get any rep. You just get the coin.
Now, the thing that, the wall that fell down was that bouncer that made me angry. So he might suspect me.
He might. Would you have carried any sort of like explosive looking device whenever you met this guy at the parlor the first time?
No, but there might be bits of a bandana.
Oh my god. The bandana flutters into his bedroom that now has no wall to protect it from the elements. I love it. Okay. Yeah, so you're going to get some heat. I think it's only 2 heat. And you do get your 4 rep. I'm going to say actually 3 heat, because there were a lot of complications and devil's bargains that were happening too. So it's got to be a little higher than just the standard. Yeah, so 4 rep, 6 coin total, and 3 heat. That's not bad. It's not terrible. We will determine what else to do later on, but let's do an outro and then we can do all our goodbyes and be on our way. So first of all, thank you guys for playing. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I hope you had fun. What we want to do is go through and say our names, where you can find us one last time, and then bid our adieus. So let's start with Derek.
I'm Derek, part of the Mythic Gazetteer. I'm going to be going to bed now. So, goodbye, everyone.
Thanks for playing, Derek. And Jeremy.
There's the mute button. All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Jeremy. I run the YouTube channel, the Erasmus Expeditions. I'm also 1/3 of the Dudes of Yore podcast, both of which can be found on YouTube. I had a blast, so thank you very, very much, and I hope to see you guys in 2 weeks.
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. It's always a pleasure to play with you. And last but not least, Baron, take it away.
What's up, everybody? I'm Baron. I played Jonathan Black. Pleasure to have you, or have me, rather. I gotta get going. It is past my bedtime, so.
All right, well, let me do this outro. And so our tale draws to a close for now, but remember to tune in next time for Ring Down Below, presented by KMGX. Our next broadcast goes live on Tuesday, June 26 at 7 p.m. Central Time. Until then, keep your eyes on the canals. We're on the prowl.